I'm watching W.
W?
Yeah, with Josh Brolin.
Oh,
No, it's a
shit.
movie. Yeah, it's a biopic. Josh Brolin and what's the woman from Zack and Miri Make a Porno? What's that woman's name? Elizabeth Banks. She's in it. She
Interesting.
plays Laura Bush.
Laura!
Yeah. It's good. It's very good. It jumps back and forth between like him being, like in college and then during his dad's presidency and then his presidency. So it kind of jumps around. It's very good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very good. Big fan.
Nice biopic.
Yeah. Colin Powell and shit and fucking,
Condoleezza Rice.
Exactly.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, November 28th, 1:35 p.m., episode 98.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. The best part about the whole deal, it's all built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless endeavor to bridge the gap between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I am Colin.
I am Donovan.
And coming up on this week's show, another listener request. Shout out to Officer Brian for this one. We're going to be talking about
Brian.
Joe Biden. Not president-elect, but still we'll be talking about his gun policies, some of the stuff that he's got on his website, and what we may or may not see coming forward if we do indeed get a Joe Biden presidency, as the situation looks like we will at this point. We'll do that. We're going to be slowly working our way through the Biden agenda over the next couple weeks to the end of the year and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to start there today, and then we're going to we got some other stuff that we'll probably get to eventually, but
the Kraken.
The Kraken.
The Kraken for a little bit.
Yeah,
we're talking about some
the little baby squid Kraken.
Yeah, exactly. No, Sydney Powell, President Trump's one of President Trump's attorneys has been talking probably for like 10 days or so, 2 weeks, about the Kraken, specifically releasing the Kraken, which is supposedly sworn testimony from individuals about the formation and design of the Dominion voting systems, and that it was designed during the Hugo Chavez era to be used to. I listened to it, and I think that I'll draw some lines. I think that what she said makes sense if you're like...
Yeah.
If you expand it, it makes sense.
It.
But if you just pick it apart like the media did, then she just sounds like a crazy person talking about a dead guy. But that's not what happened. So we're talking about that and how the Dominion voting systems were potentially designed to be flipped and used to sway elections. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We have our hills to die on. I don't know if you picked a hill to die on this week, so I have mine.
If I haven't, I will by the end of the episode.
We're talking about sports because we have the fantasy playoffs coming up here. I think this is week 11.
Yeah.
I think. And then we have next week is week 12. And then
this is... So the week that we're currently fighting in is week 12.
Word. So then next week...
It's a rough week for me.
Next week is the last week until the playoffs, I think.
I pulled out a W last week,
14, 15, 16. Yeah, because we have
ass.
three weeks of playoffs. So there's only 2 games left in the regular season of the league of $700. And then we are in playoff time. It's single elimination. No fucking around.
Bro, you're projected to get your ass whooped this week. How do you feel about that?
Oh, projections don't mean shit to me anymore.
That's a good point.
Ezekiel Elliott, did fuck me over. He did fumble for like the 5th time this year. In our league, every fucking year I do this, fumbles really bone you. If you fumble the ball, it's -1 point. But if they lose it, it's -2 points extra. And every time I forget to change it in the off season. So it's 3 points if you lose a fumble, which just really fucks you. And so...
Yeah, we got a very... eclectic rule set, don't we?
Yes.
Just from what I've been able to glean from you.
Savage is what it is.
Yeah.
I made a really hardcore... Yeah, it's savage. It's hard. Yeah, it's crazy. The first year I fucked up and did like for passing yards for quarterbacks. So like the way that it is now, 1 point for every 25 yards. And the first year that I did it, it was 1 point for every 10 yards. And so you had quarterbacks getting like 70 points and shit. It was crazy. The scores were astronomical. The season was ridiculous, but I didn't realize that I had fucked up to like 3 weeks in. And I was like, why are all these scores so high? And that's why. Yeah, so that's my bad, but it's fixed now. Got to figure something out with trades. We got stuff to figure out.
Yeah, we got stuff it'll be a refinement year. This is our rebuilding year, right? As far as the rules go.
Next year, I think that I might want to try and like live stream or take video of the draft process and like cut a Salt of the Streets video of the draft. I think that would be fun.
Hard yes.
Yeah, we're gonna release that on our social media. Obviously, it'll be on the website Salt of the Streets. We'll have clips of it on the Instagram at Salt of the Streets. We'll have it on the YouTube at Salt of the Streets. Obviously, fuck Facebook. Facebook at Salt of the Streets. Personal social media, I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter, Salt of the Streets on Parler, and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. He's a Big Bird Offie on all those things. Fuck Facebook. saltofthestreets.com. All of this stuff is on there. Everything. Pictures of this mustache, Movember things. The day that this comes out will be. Is it the 1st? Is it the 30th?
Yeah, November 30th is
Okay,
Monday.
so the day this comes out, if you're listening to it that day, you still have time if you would like to donate to Movember. If not, make sure that you're checking in with people in your life, the men in your life, to make sure they're taking care of themselves. They're getting prostate exams. They're getting testicular exams. They are checking in with mental health professionals and checking in with their family to make sure that they are good to go. One of the big things that Movember is hitting on in the last few years is suicide, men's suicide. It's
a big deal.
As much as the left doesn't want you to know it, middle-aged white men commit themselves at, a ludicrously higher rate than any other segment of the population.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so...
Is that a weighted average with our population? I would imagine.
I don't know.
Just because,
the numbers are, it's like 3-4 times as often as any other group that, those are the people who kill themselves as middle-aged white men. Like, that's just essentially how that works.
Oy.
Anyway... The point is, make sure the men in your life are taken care of. Make sure you're taking care of them. Make sure that they are taking care of themselves. Movember.com, Movember Foundation are doing great things.
We lost Alex Trebek this year to
pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer.
Yep. That was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. That was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings played last game with some custom fucking Alex Trebek cleats on. Those were sick. He said, "We'll miss you, Alex. I used to watch Jeopardy with my mom and grandma all the time growing up. That shit was crazy when my grandma moved out. Jordan and I got together. She would come over and I would watch Jeopardy with my mom all the time."
Nice.
We used to watch Jeopardy all the time.
Watching Jeopardy at home was a fun time. We used to watch it on the ships a lot, depending on who was around and stuff at night. And when it would finally come on, there'd be a gang of people out there, and we'd all be screaming at the TV, trying to, everybody trying to one-up each other. Trying to get the right questions, not the right answers.
I've heard that Ken Jennings is going to be the interim host until they pick a permanent one. Do you remember who Ken Jennings is?
No.
Ken Jennings holds the record for the longest streak on Jeopardy and like the most amount of money.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking guy.
Yeah, he needs to be taken out of the circuit, man. He's a ringer at this point.
There was another guy that had another streak that I think maybe earned more money than Ken Jennings, but wasn't on as long as Ken Jennings. I think he just bet like crazier. But I believe Ken Jennings still holds the record for the longest streak on Jeopardy. So he's going to be like the interim host.
Ken Jennings is the interim host right now?
He is the interim host?
So they actually...
Did they run out of Trebek episodes?
He's announced that he's the interim host, but he also tweeted, so this is just a fun... extra thing for you. He also tweeted just a few days after he was announced to be the host, nothing sadder than a hot person in a wheelchair is what he tweeted.
Is that a picture? Did he have a picture of Alex Trebek or somebody says that?
Just nothing
just
sadder
random?
than a hot person in a wheelchair. So
wow.
People aren't happy about that.
Nice. Way to go, Ken. Wow. The things that I think he's from Washington. I think that he's from Washington State. Not important.
We don't need that.
There are things, Ken Jennings, that you can't say once people are paying attention to what you're saying. I've had like several people in my life, especially when they're talking about like the language that we use on podcasts. People are gonna like know about it. But like people listening, I'm like, oh, are they? Are people listening to this? Is that what the intent of this is? Is that why we're recording this and continuously putting it on the goddamn internet for people to listen to it? Of course, I am dangerously aware of the things that I am saying and the fact that people are listening to it, and that 30 years from now they could potentially be pulling this while I'm sitting, I don't know, in the Senate or some shit testifying about whatever, and they're like, why would you ever say something like this? I'm like, I was 25. I don't know what to, like, that's...
I don't want to live in a world where in 20 years from now, if you're making a Senate run or you're running some kind of political campaign for public office, that something that you said on the internet 25 years ago can be held against you.
I'll defend
like it
it.
is now.
I'll own it.
It's just, it is the most disgusting thing that we decide that it's okay to dredge up ridiculous things people say when they were younger and in a different time period and try to use that against their character today.
Yeah.
It is one of the hallmarks of cancel culture, and it is a cancer on our republic and our free society as a whole. And I would hate if we in 20 fucking years are still doing this nonsense. If we can't accept that we are all flawed individuals who do stupid shit growing up, we don't deserve to have this country anymore. I'm gonna get off that high horse.
Go off, fam. No, I'm in. Let's do it. Slay it, Queen.
So this, that's a preview of my mental state going into this episode.
I love it.
Irrationally angry about everything in the world right now.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to
start that I'm gonna wear on the podcast?
It's
I decided. I look like
reading,
a 19
I like it.
paper boy.
Yeah. It's much better than the one we made fun of yesterday. That guy looked like a fucking douche. And you do not look like a douche. He was driving a Mini Cooper, and I backed in.
Was it the UK kind with the flag and shit on it, or?
So I backed my truck in at Costco. Got a nice little front spot at Costco. It was like only like 4 spots in. It was really cool. Yeah, it was dope. And then like 2 spots over, this guy fucking whoop with his little Mini Cooper. And he's fucking around, and he adjusted his spot even though it's only taking up 60% of the parking spot as like it is. And
I don't think my smart car fits in between the lines.
Fucked around, looked around, and then left after we talked a bunch of shit about him. We sat there, we're getting Dax out of the car, and we're like talking shit about this guy.
I love it.
I'm sure we sound terrible. Though. Like, Donovan's a fucking asshole. Like, he's just...
Dude, okay, if people can't accept that, like, when you're sitting in a parking lot, people watching and like making fun of people is one of the greatest pastimes, okay? It's all in good jest. Amen. They're all watching us, judging me and my hat.
She wore my hat out of the store because it was sunny, and so when I put the cart back, I had this going on, I accept that on the way to the carburetor and on the way to my car, people are going to see this, and they're going to be like, this guy looks like a fucking asshole.
This guy,
they don't care,
bro.
They don't care that I was being nice and I gave my wife my hat because it was sunny outside and she couldn't see. That doesn't matter. Just like I don't care why that guy wore that hat. He looked like a fucking douchebag. and that is what it is.
I will say a little backstory about this hat.
Yes.
So a couple weeks ago, I was telling you guys before the podcast, I was helping my mom move out.
Yes.
Some of her stuff, and she had a box of some of my dad's old stuff, and this was my dad's old hat.
Really?
Apparently, he wore it one time. And so that's where I got this.
He liked it that much, huh?
Apparently.
All right.
Apparently. So, it was just a little, he was a little late for it because, apparently I looked just like my father when he was my age. Like, you could see an old picture. That's too old, and 270s, but
super 70s.
Yeah, like I saw a picture of like my dad on his softball team in high school, and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm gonna look like now when I'm older.
Well, and that's when I have that.
Yeah.
That mustache like this.
There it is.
That's my dad. Like when he was in the Navy, he's probably right around the age.
Looking fresh.
So, it's real. Well, and like these pictures of me, like Dax looks so much like me.
Yep.
In these pictures, it's fucking.
Thank goodness he's got a little lighter hair going on right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Is his hair getting any darker? Have you guys noticed? I just remember when I was a kid, I was like platinum blonde, and now I'm, dirty blonde.
We gave him like the proper haircut, though. You saw like
I did.
Yeah. So
looking fresh.
It's a whole deal. He loves it. He said that same day. I was, do you like it? Yeah. He likes it. I'm sure. It was getting in his face and stuff. He was pushing it out.
Oh yeah, that's annoying, man.
I have some people like Roanne's kid. His hair's crazy long, and he loves it. She just ties it up in a bun. He loves it. Yeah, he doesn't seem bothered by it. And if Dax didn't care, I wouldn't have had a problem.
Yeah.
Letting it go. I had long
strokes
hair
for
when I
different
was a
folks.
Yeah. My mom let that shit grow down to the top of my pants before she cut it.
Woo.
For realsy, she still has the ponytail. It's like over a foot
Did you ever
long.
have a rat tail?
No, I never had a rat tail. I had like a hardcore mullet. It was a mullet that grew down to the top of my pants. Yes.
Joe Dirt.
If you look.
Snakes and sparklers. There it is.
Yes.
Party in the
business
in the front, party in the back.
It's just I just like took a bath or whatever, so it's like down my. These are pajamas. These are just short sleeve pajamas.
Jams.
Yeah.
Are those
so
Rugrats?
they are Rugrats. Yeah, I remember those pajamas. They're short sleeve Rugrats pajamas. So I've got to just be getting ready to go to bed. You know.
Yep. Look at you. Look at you. You were so adorable. What happened?
This is February of '97. So
97. I was 10.
Not even 3, 2.
I hate when we do
Freshly 2.
I need to never mention my age around you ever. It just
Here we
makes
go.
me feel adulty. So anyway, today
yeah.
a couple days after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So how was your Thanksgiving, brother?
Thanksgiving was good. Yeah, I forgot to even talk about that in pre-show. Thanksgiving was good. In the morning we went to my mom's house. We were going to have my grandma lives at a retirement facility just down the road from my mom's apartment, and she was going to come to my mom's apartment, and then with everything closed down again, she decided to stay home. So we went and had breakfast at my mom's, which was really nice. It was just me and Jordan and Dax and my mom, and we see her all the time, so just for him, he was like, fucking... Also, fuck you guys. We went to my mom's house, and we had breakfast. We had some fucking cinnamon rolls. Jesus Christ, Jordan made cinnamon rolls. They were delicious.
That's not... Man.
Oh, my God.
I'm hungry
They
now.
were fire. Cinnamon rolls, sausages, bacon, some biscuits.
That's what I had for breakfast today, actually, was my leftover Thanksgiving breakfast.
Excellent.
How
was the venison gravy?
Oh, it was money.
Was it crazy
so
fire?
Yeah.
God damn.
It was a little... I had to punch it up a little bit, just because, it was about as base stock as you can get.
Yeah.
So, like, I took the turkey gizzard and the neck and stuff like that and kind of chopped it up and then sauteed those in a pan to get the nice little, get the bits and stuff at the bottom of the pan, all the good flavor. And then salted the hell out of it and then added in the stock, which...
Deglaze it with the stock?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, bud. But it was pretty money, man.
Yeah.
It's really mild, actually.
Yeah.
Like, even compared to, like, turkey gravy.
I bet if you made stock, like if you boiled the bones for like a day, and like made stock like proper style, it would be fucking...
because you're insinuating now that my stock was not properly made. But
no, I would never.
When I made that stock, I probably only did about 12 hours of reduction, which, because then at the end too, it's tough because as you reduce, it gets, more and more concentrated, but then you add more water over time, and
people be doing days and shit like that.
Yeah, you want to get like go to like the Pan Pacific Islands and stuff like that, where like their soup stocks are like God and everything.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like a sourdough starter, man. They'll take a stock that they've had in the family for generations, and they just add more and more to it every single day. And so you got like 60 years of flavor condensing just in one. I need to stop talking about fucking
Gordon Ramsay said, I was watching MasterChef once, and he said the best dish he ever ate was a soup from the South Pacific. Yeah, that he ate on a boat in the rain. He ate this soup, and he said it was the best thing he ever ate in his entire life.
We'll say the environment at which you eat whatever it is you're eating plays such a factor in how it's going to taste at the end.
1,000%.
Like the difference in drinking a beer on the beach with your shoes on compared to your shoes off, the beer will taste different. Definitely will.
One of the best pieces of pizza I've ever had, waterfront pizza in Port Townsend, right?
Yep.
And I was delivering mattresses, and we just made a big-ass delivery because you only drive out to Port Townsend from Silverdale for, like, an expensive delivery. Yeah. So I'm sure it was one of those big latex mattresses or something, and we ate pizza on the back of the delivery truck. Just sat there on the water, parked there, and just watched from downtown Port Townsend. I was like, this is a good spot, it right here. Yeah, it was awesome.
Maybe a month ago, went up there to just had a little mini date day and just went to the brewery, went to Waterfront Pizza.
Yes.
There's a tea shop and spice shop I like to go to in there, and I'll have to show you some of my spices if you.
Dax is old enough now that we could do that, a day trip and be like, today you just don't get a nap, but we're gonna keep you occupied all day.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do shit all day.
Jordan's like, I rue the day. This sounds so great.
He can do it.
I started watching this.
He's 2. He's gonna be a dick either way. We're just gonna go for it.
Right? He's a 2-year-old. No matter what, he's gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, you're gonna have a bad time.
I started watching this anime on Netflix called Food Wars.
Food Wars.
And it's all about like this prestigious culinary academy, which essentially is a high school, but it's like super, super intense, as only anime can do. But it has reinvigorated my inner cuisine.
We're here for it.
Oh man, and I've just been devastating the kitchen lately, just dropping heat in there. So one of these days we'll have to do a nice little cookout. We can go nutsos on something.
Fuck yeah.
So maybe. Maybe. Well, I guess our shooting date coming up, is that supposed to be for? That's not your birthday shooting date, right?
It is.
That is.
It
okay.
is.
Okay. So you're not going to actually go on your birthday.
No.
Okay.
No. Christmas Eve. That's no.
You know, it's 2020, baby.
I got a family now. I got other shit to do that day. I got a kid to do things with, and so.
So you've just written off your birthday now for.
My birthday is Christmas Eve, Colin. I never had a birthday. It never existed.
But now it's exponentially
worse. I'm just the man that come New Year's Day, I'm just a year older. I've just happened to be a year older. It just is what it is.
Oh my God! Speaking of which, yeah, you're not a coffee drinker, Jordan. Are you a coffee drinker?
I drink coffee.
You drink some black coffee?
I'm getting a black coffee.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
I started putting a little bit of a dash of nutmeg in my black coffee in the morning. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Little things like that. I'm starting to church up my whole culinary life.
Church.
Everything is. We're all going to church, bro. Because now, I don't know if you saw this video. There was I think it was in North Carolina. There was a big church that got together right before Thanksgiving, and they decided to. They figured out a way that they can hold a church service without breaking the fucking COVID shutdown laws and all this stuff. They decided to call it a peaceful protest.
Jesus Christ.
So they all got together in the church, and the minister got up there, the pastor, whatever it is, and was like, "Welcome to so and so church, the peaceful occupied protest," and everybody in the audience, yeah. There's been a lot of those recently. You saw
like
the Jewish church, the secret Jewish church wedding in New York.
Not only did I see that, Colin, I saw that the Supreme Court has now ruled in favor of religious groups in New York City, saying that the governor and the government did, in fact, discriminate against them with these shutdown orders.
That's right.
When you are locking up Jewish parks,
but basically only Jewish parks,
we got a problem here, right? And when these orders are that easy to get around with the fucking tents we're talking about at Red Robin, right? Where you're inside, outside. We're going to establish a tent that you're going to sit inside, and it's a closed environment because we live in Washington. So it's averaging like 45 degrees right now. Between 45 and 50 degrees. It's fucking cold outside. It's raining today. It's very cold outside with the rain, right? So obviously people are not going to pay good money to sit outside in an open environment when it's 45 degrees outside. Nope. So they have a closed tent that you can sit inside, but you can't sit inside the restaurant.
Yep.
This doesn't make any sense. The same thing, you can have an enormous church gathering inside of your church as long as you're calling it a peaceful protest. And I'm not saying these people shouldn't be doing what they're doing. My point is that when these things are that easy to get around, there's obviously fucking nonsense going on here.
Yeah.
Like, they're obviously nonsensical.
And because they're not laws, I think it's relatively hard to fight against them.
Right.
Because they're just these all-encompassing, executive edicts that come down from on high, and they don't ever see a legislative process. They don't ever see a court. They just pass these things, and it's up to somebody with a bunch of money and time that they can invest in a lawsuit to bring against these things. And luckily, some of these cases are going forward, and unfortunately, the governors and the mayors are not liking what the courts have to say about them infringing on our First Amendment right. Because for those of you that don't know, the government does not grant us our rights. The sole reason for the existence of our government is to protect the infringements of our rights. And these days we have more infringement on the government side than we do the protection of.
Yes.
And it's really nice to see some of these lawsuits going through, and people like, in New York, they're getting theirs from the court.
They're getting theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love it. Love to see it.
I love to see it. Especially because every single one of these hypocritical pieces of crap is out there being caught on video breaking their own fucking rules.
Yeah.
Everybody from the Gavin Newsom, Bill de Blasio, Andrew Cuomo, what's her name, Gretchen Whitmer, who I hear now is going to be impeached, by the way.
Thank
the
you.
sounds of it.
I have seen that there are counties that are voting to approve moving forward with the impeachment process.
And as we all
Governor
know,
Whitmer, Michigan.
just because an impeachment gets approved to go forward doesn't mean anybody's actually going to be like thrown out of office.
I'm interested to see what happens with this.
Me too, because there's a lot of this second wave of shutdowns that has come past in the last 2 weeks since we met last time. All these things have kind of taken hold.
Was the Tuesday after that episode, that recording, that everything shut down again?
And it's, I mean, we say shutdown, but it's not even really a shutdown. There's like my office building just has a little bit more stringent rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not allowed to move around the office without a mask on. But when you're sitting at your desk by yourself, you can have your mask off. Which, I get it. I get the business owners and the building owners and stuff that are trying not to get popped, but it just, you think about it for 30 seconds and you go, it doesn't make sense.
And there are apparently different regulations for like private businesses, like closed businesses, that like people don't come to, versus businesses that like clients come in and see. And that's like, I don't know,
get it.
We're all like socially distanced at work just as by design, just as it is. Yeah. So we have all just conducted business as usual. Since the second shutdown, there's like some people that are wearing masks at work, and I mean, from the beginning, they've said like, if you want to wear one, that's fine, but they're not requiring, they're not requiring it. And I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know what
knowing who you work for, that place has got like HEPA filters and that massive ventilation system. And I mean, they wouldn't do things the wrong way.
Yeah.
Them dudes take care of everybody.
And when all the shutdowns first started, we were having meetings like every week, probably every 10 days to like go over. So this is kind of what's happening now, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're required to do, and this is what we're not required to do. And so, they've been up to date on whatever, Well, they're obviously savvy businessmen, so they know what the fuck they're doing.
And they don't make it easy. I will say that. The state makes it very, very difficult because it's very unclear. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty details of what you can and can't get away with, because it's so, I think it's purposely ambiguous. The ambiguity of it all. There we go. I just had to say ambiguity.
There it is.
It's just, I'm tired of it. I'm really, really tired of it. I did see in the Kitsap Sun last night, there was an article about a group of protesters that stayed to protest outside of Janesley's home in Bainbridge Island on Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah, and they had signs about like the answer is herd immunity and stuff like that. But
interesting.
Yeah. So somebody might have interrupted his annual football match, except this time it's just him and Trudy.
Fuck Janesley.
All I'm saying.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with gun policy?
Let's do it.
Okay. So as Colin indicated at the beginning of the show, over the next few episodes, we are going to kind of break down the Biden administration, Biden presidency piece by piece. Today, we have a listener topic request in the form of Officer Brian. Officer Brian.
What appears to be the Ossifer problem?
Officer Brian wanted us to talk about Joe Biden's gun policy. And he also specifically wanted us to talk about smart guns, because smart guns are mentioned on this page in a really stupid way, which I think is really funny. So that's what we're going to do, right? We're going to start with the things that we know. We're going to go through what it says on the actual JoeBiden.com page, right? But first, we're going to go over the things that we know that he said in the beginning, right? Or prior to this. He said that he's going to put Beto O'Rourke in charge of guns. Whether or not that's really going to happen, we don't know, because that hasn't happened yet. But he did say that on the campaign trail. He has said that his intent is to have a buyback for assault weapons, in which your options are to sell the weapons to the government or register them under the NFA, the National Firearms Act, which is something that currently only covers. Not only, but cover short-barreled rifles like sawed-off shotguns, suppressors, things like that, machine guns that are highly regulated by the government, right? They have also said they are going to ban 30-round magazines You're going to have to NFA 30-round magazines. And what comes with registering something under the National Firearms Act is what's called a tax stamp, which costs $200. And so for this, what he's laid out already, for every semi-automatic rifle that you own and every magazine, pistol or rifle magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, you would have to pay that tax stamp for that $200. There are tens of millions of magazines in the United States that hold more than 10 rounds. The cost to taxpayers would be astronomical and would be something nobody could afford to pay. I myself, I don't have any problem saying this. I own 11 magazines for my AR-15. I bought 2 of them after I got it, and then when I bought my rifle bag, it came with like 7. So that's why I have this many. It's because it came with, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you're looking at $200 or $2,200 alone, and
just
you tax the stamp.
Just rifle magazines, not including my rifle, and then my pistol magazines, because I have 3 of those that came with my pistol that hold 15 rounds. So that's $600 just in pistol magazines that I would have to pay for something I already own.
So you're paying $3,000 now, just
for things I already own,
which you are constitutionally allowed. I don't want to say allowed, but
it is instilled and protected in the Constitution that I have the right to own and maintain these firearms for self-protection and protection of this country against foreign and domestic threats. So it's extremely concerning to me that before he's even in office, these are the things that have been laid out.
But guns are bad, Donovan.
Right.
Which I think we'll just start from the top of his website. One of the first things he has on his website.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. Something else that we know. Said that he wants to end the sales of ammunition, firearms, and firearm parts online. People buy ammunition online all the time, partially because it's easier to get online because stores can only hold so much. Ammo warehouses can hold, obviously, X times more. You can get better prices online because you can buy in bulk online easier. If you're going to buy in bulk in a store, they can only have so many boxes of 1,000 rounds in a store because they take up so much room. But again, in a warehouse, you can have many, many more. Parts online, there are many things that you can buy online that make your gun better. Trigger. There's anything, that you can buy on. The only thing that you're required to have transferred in a store, is anything that has a serial number on it. People buy guns online all the time. Even if you purchase it online, the AR-15 that I have, I purchased online, but I had to go to the store to register it and put it in my name because it's a firearm, and that's how it works. It's still a registered item. You still have to go and pick it up. You still have to do the background check. You still have to do everything there. And even when I got there, like the payment that I did online, they put on a gift card that they swipe in the store. And so, that's like how it's, at least at Sportsman's where I got. So that's like how that's done, So that's...
And most of that kind of opposition against online purchases and stuff like that comes from people who don't understand how the market works. And
it doesn't come to your house.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand. When you click that buy button on a website, you have to set up where it's going to go. It has to go to a licensed FFL, who is a federal firearms dealer, who is licensed to do everything. They have the background check capability. That's how they get their license. And then you go to the store, you do the background check, you do the whole normal thing. It doesn't matter where it goes either. You can have it go to any FFL.
And those people, FFLs, are required to do background checks where they themselves could do prison time. If they're going to transfer them, they have to do a background check on it. That's federally, that's how that works. And that's what people are often talking about when they talk about the gun show loophole. And I think we'll talk about this later in this explanation here, this breakdown. The gun show loophole is often when people are talking about like private sales, and in private sales, you are required to do a background check unless, like, if you have a reason to believe or, unless you know for a fact that somebody doesn't have a criminal record, even then you're supposed to do it, and it has to be transferred still. The title still has to be transferred through an FFL, and that person is going to do a background check. And so, like,
there is no legal way to purchase a gun in the United States, to my knowledge at this point, without doing some form of background check to legally purchase it. There's, even the private citizens who have a part-time business, just being an FFL for their friends or something like that, they have the capability to go online and run the background check.
Right.
Done. It's that simple. I mean, it's
in some states you can give guns as gifts,
Yeah.
but those are also very strict circumstances, and like they're very unique circumstances, and it's very rare in which you would spend money on a gun and then just give it to somebody as a gift. I mean, multiple times in your life, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just I can see obviously you do it for like a friend or like a kid, maybe, I would buy Dax like a 22 or something, like, here you go, but even then, like, I don't know. We'll just get into this and then we'll move on from there. So, we'll go ahead and start at the top, right? In the very beginning, Joe Biden knows that gun violence is a public health epidemic. Almost 40,000 people die as a result of firearms injuries every year in the United States, and many, many more are wounded. Some of these deaths and injuries are the result of mass shootings that make national headlines. Others are results of daily acts of gun violence or suicides that may not make national headlines, but they are just as devastating to the families and communities left behind. So, I think that's super, super interesting because later down at the very bottom, when they start talking about suicides again, they talk about how rarely mentioned suicides are and how 6 out of 10 acts of gun violence are actually suicides, but they're rarely discussed. And so up here at the top, where they say they're rarely discussed, they choose not to indicate that 60% of these 40,000 deaths are due to suicides. Not that some of them are due to suicides, but that we have an
60%.
enormous problem with suicides in this country and depression, obviously, and that's why so many people are killing themselves with firearms. So I think that's pretty interesting. They then talk about how Joe Biden worked on the Brady handgun violence bill and the assault weapons ban. Joe Biden knows how to make progress. Sandy Hook. Let's see. So the first point is hold gun manufacturers accountable,
which is probably one of the biggest issues to talk about with his plan, because this is a brand new concept that is looking to be completely legitimized.
Yes. And so what Joe Biden is talking about, what the administration is talking about, the campaign is talking about, is the ability for victims of gun violence and their families to have the ability to sue gun manufacturers for the deaths of their families or their personal injury. This was a huge case when Sandy Hook happened, and many of those parents decided they were going to sue Remington, who was the manufacturer of the firearm used in the Sandy Hook school shooting. Because of just the legal fees and costs that came through, Remington has already filed for bankruptcy. I don't remember for certain whether or not they actually had to pay out to those families. Like, I think that lawsuit is still actively ongoing.
It's got to be, because that would set a very interesting precedence here.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that Joe Biden is talking about. Yes.
Can I have your wallet? Yeah, and to just keep going on that, what we're essentially talking about here, you set now a legal precedent about a manufacturer being liable for what their customers do with a product.
Yeah.
That the same logic you can carry over into car accidents or, I mean, any type of product, that if you happen to be using this product and accidentally kill somebody or purposely kill somebody, now the manufacturer is somehow legally liable to it. I don't understand where that logic can stop at that point.
Right.
You set a precedent that can be carried over to almost any kind of industry. And sometimes there are legitimate reasons to sue manufacturers over loss of life with, say, like, let's say you buy steel and you build a building, and then all of a sudden the building collapses one day and kills a bunch of people, and you realize that the steel was manufactured to, wasn't manufactured to spec, and it was flawed. And
this is we have a great local example of this, right? There is a metal tester in Tacoma that was testing steel that falsified tests, I think, for like a decade for steel that built ships for the military.
Bro.
Goes into the shipyard, my G. Yeah, that's actively happening right now, right? So those people are
that's a
going
legitimate
to
thing,
right. That's actually happening right now. Within the last 2 years, that story got blown the fuck open, right? And so,
I mean, if this was around during the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you couldn't buy a chainsaw anymore.
And so the concern is that if something were to happen on one of those ships, not only is the U.S. military and the government going to sue that company, and they're going to do it already anyway, right?
Yeah.
But then you have cases where anybody who died in that boat all of their families can then sue this company. And that's not to say that those people don't deserve something for what happened to their families, but the idea that a company would be, I don't know, maybe that's a poor example for exactly what we're talking about, but
Well, because what we're talking about there is a blatant disregard for, falsifying tests to make sure
Right.
that your product, the quality of the product you put out is subpar, and then covering it up versus a manufacturer who creates a tool that can be used in a lethal manner, being used in a lethal manner, and then
Word. Okay, so a better example would be if the families of the people who died sued the makers of the machine that was used to test the metal because it was used and fucked with and falsified, right?
Yes.
So whatever the manufacturer, Offie, right, that makes the testing machine that they use to test the strength of the steel, if those families were then to come after you for having produced a machine that could be used to fuck with the testing of the metal.
Well, how about a group of parents suing Coca-Cola for making their kids obese?
Yeah.
Because they put out a product that is going to do deleterious health, it's going to have bad health consequences to their kids or whatever, and it gives them diabetes, and now all of a sudden they got diabetes.
I think
it's
that
Coke's
what we've
fault.
learned from these three examples is that there are definitely instances in which this could be beneficial, and that's a lot of times in which civil cases in civil court come into play. But to set a precedent in which the manufacturer of a product could be sued by people for it being misused is an extremely dangerous precedent to set when there is currently systems already in place for things like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So essentially we'd be switching things up from, say, civil suits to criminal suits.
Right, especially something like this that's owned, something like a firearm that's owned by an individual that is completely based off of the intent and the choice of that individual.
Yeah.
After that gun is manufactured and sold, there is nothing that the manufacturer can do to dictate the way that that individual will act with that firearm.
And to think anything different just seems insane.
And there are companies like Bravo Company Manufacturing where in their ads they say specifically they are creating life-saving tools. That their expectation is that those firearms will be used in a life-saving scenario either domestically or by somebody who's in the military. And so how do you sue a company like that who's saying our intent is that you will save your life with this, not take other people's lives, not do harm to innocent individuals, but save your life? If somebody misuses that product when the intent is there in the tagline, the advertising, the whatever, how do you hold that company liable for the choices of an individual because they chose to use an expensive AR-15 instead of a $500 Bushmaster or whatever that was used? You know what I'm saying?
That's just called forward thinking, I think, on their part.
I'm
that
sure
wasn't
at least
calculated,
part of it is, if it wasn't, then they're geniuses. But,
exactly.
But that's the concern, So the next point that we have here is get weapons of war off of our streets. The ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that Biden, along with Senator Feinstein, secured in 1994 reduced the lethality of mass shootings. But in order to secure the passage of the bans, they had to agree to a 10-year sunset provision. When the time came, the Bush administration failed to extend them. As President Biden will ban the manufacturing and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. We've talked about the term assault weapons, like 1,000 times before, because the term assault weapons indicates a machine gun, which is something that shoots automatic fire, which a regular individual citizen cannot own or possess or even purchase. You have to be an FFL to possess one of those or even be able to purchase them. They are super duper expensive because you can't make them anymore. And so
it's cost prohibitive. Alone
to purchase one, there are orders of magnitude more expensive than an entry level AR-15 that would shoot semi-automatic. So
the technical expertise you need to maintain those style of weapons too is beyond the scope of what normal people are used to.
Right. As far as the manufacturing of high-capacity magazines, this is something that we've talked about in the past when this came up in our local legislature for banning high-capacity magazines, right? My biggest concern... You tried to get addressed. My biggest concern with high-capacity the banning of high-capacity magazines is that they already exist on the street.
Yes.
They already happen. Somebody who is going to commit a crime, and I don't know, this feels like a old school conservative argument, for the criminals already have them. But that's as somebody who owns firearms now, I can tell you, somebody who is already willing to commit a crime doesn't give a shit about how big the magazine is in their gun.
No.
As long as it fits and it shoots and it will hold bullets, that is what matters, you know? And so the idea that I, as a law-abiding citizen protected under the Second Amendment, who has lawfully purchased his firearm, registered it, done all the things that I'm required to do, should be held at a disadvantage to somebody who intends to do me or my family harm seems absolutely ludicrous to me. And in regards to the higher purpose of the Second Amendment, defending yourselves from the government or a foreign entity,
Adversary.
the idea that I should again be held to 10 rounds in order to defend myself from a government that has belt-fed machine guns and has all these things, that I should then only have 10 rounds in a magazine to be able to do that, again seems laughable to me.
Especially when we've seen the recent enforcement efforts on the parts of local law enforcement to clamp down on obviously unconstitutional orders as it is.
Right.
What happens if it's more serious at this point? That's truly what the Second Amendment is there to do. There to protect you and your community and society as a whole from tyrannical governments.
Right. One thing that I find very interesting in here, this says, for example, the ban on assault weapons will be designed to prevent manufacturers, because they said that the Biden administration is going to pass legislation, right? That they're going to enact legislation that will once again ban assault weapons. I do not see that happening.
No.
But if it does, for example, the ban on assault weapons will be designed to prevent manufacturers from circumventing the law by making minor changes that don't limit the weapon's lethality. While working to pass this legislation, Biden will also use his executive authority to ban the importation of assault weapons. So let's start with the lethality portion. There is I can't think of a thing you could readily do to a firearm to make it less lethal than another firearm.
Yeah.
Any firearm, a 22 will kill you if you get shot in the right place.
Yep.
If you get shot in an artery or in the head, it will kill you.
Or
right?
if it deflects off of a bone and decides to bang off into no man's land, it doesn't have enough velocity to escape the back end, and it just tears you up.
Bleed
on
out.
The inside.
So the idea that something that shoots more bullets is more lethal than something else, I think, is ludicrous, right? It logically doesn't make sense, and so I don't know.
To a layman's thinking, more bullets means more dead people, though.
Yeah.
Even though it takes how many seconds to change a magazine?
Check this. And that's a great example, because just within the last month, we saw in Austria, there was a terrorist attack in which the gunman walked around with a fucking tote bag full of magazines. Not a plate carrier, not a battle belt, none of the tactical shit that we've seen in American mass shootings. This guy walked around with a tote bag full of fucking magazines, and we saw that a few years ago. I don't remember where it was. Somewhere in South America, I believe. We saw the exact same thing. Somebody walking around with a tote bag full of magazines so they could just drop them and reload and keep moving. So what the fuck are we really talking about here?
Yep.
Secondly, to this portion, when they are talking about Biden using his executive authority to ban the importation of assault weapons, the vast majority, the AR-15 is the most popular firearm platform in America,
yes,
which are far and away dominantly produced in America.
Yes.
They are milled here. You can literally buy the beginnings of an AR-15 for $50 that was made in America.
Yep.
So this was laughable when Kamala Harris said it when she was running, and it's laughable now that stopping the importation, even fucking AKs, right? AK is like a Russian-made weapon.
Yeah.
Most people don't own Kalashnikovs.
No.
They don't own an actual Russian AK. They own an American-made AK. So it's not. And the shit that gets shipped here from China is like shitty shotguns and like things like that that are not going to make a difference in the way that people conduct their daily lives purchasing firearms. Even if that was to be secured, not importing firearms anymore, assault weapons specifically, right? Because your biggest thing is like cheap Chinese shotguns and bullshit like that, hunting rifles and things like that. Not like, I don't know. That seems just so
feels like
fucking
one of those,
stupid to me.
You do it because it's part of essentially just shutting down.
It's like
all
1639.
aspects of it.
It's a thing you're doing that makes people feel like you're doing something, but it doesn't actually affect the reality of the situation.
Well, if you go ahead and destroy an entire economic sector of manufacturing for local just to use their terms, assault rifles.
Yeah.
American-made AR-15s and whatnot, AR platforms, we'll say. Once you do that, and then you ban the American manufacturing of AKs and SKSs and so on and so forth, you're creating now a vacuum in the market to be filled from overseas, and then you've already put up the wall there. So now, once you close down the manufacturing and make it damn near impossible for any U.S. manufacturer to create these rifles, the only other way for a U.S. consumer to get a product like that would be to have it shipped in from overseas.
Right.
And so they cut that portion off, almost like cutting off filling a loophole.
Yeah. The next point on here is regulate possession of existing assault weapons.
Real quick, I should speak.
Yes.
That, I believe, should speak more to the overall intent of what is happening here. Because like you said, on its face, it really doesn't do much because we have the manufacturing here. But if we don't have the manufacturing here, you're essentially cutting off the entirety of the assault rifle market in the United States, more or less making them impossible to get without totally making them illegal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like I feel like there are more handguns that are made overseas than there are like ARs, like this made in Austria.
Yeah,
in
Glock's
Georgia.
made in Austria, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. That just, like I said, like you said, it doesn't seem like it will do anything on its face, but I guess combined with other policies, that's a long con. That's a long-term thing.
Yeah, which speaks to Joe Biden's 50 years in government trying to just get rid of all firearms, essentially.
And so the next 2 points kind of go together. Regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act and buy back the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in communities. What they're talking about here is taking AR-15, semi-automatic rifles, and 30-round magazines, or high-capacity magazines, they're calling anything over 10 rounds, and forcing people to register those under the National Firearms Act. Or buy them back, or sell them to the government, which is funny. They call it a buyback, you know. And this is like a splitting hairs point, but like the government never sold anybody any private citizen weapon, so the idea that they can buy it back seems ludicrous to me. So there's all kinds of like hardcore 2A guys that are like, oh yeah, I'll do a buyback, like totally, I'll totally do a government buyback, like absolutely, because they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to give you anything because you haven't sold me anything. So I'll totally participate in a buyback because there's nothing for you to buy back from me. But
I mean, if anything, they should, if they were to make some governmental buyback program just available, period, right?
Yeah.
You could do that, and then regardless,
a voluntary buyback.
Yeah, I mean, and then regardless of what store you bought it from, which retail establishment, the money that essentially the government would front to you goes back into, they'd have to subsidize the manufacturer that you bought it from or who made it.
Right.
That may make a little bit more fiscal sense, even though this whole thing is incredibly insane.
Yeah.
But no, because it's been brought up like that before, the government buyback program, when you really think about it, the government is paying you to give them your firearms, but it's not buying it back. They're just buying it from you.
Right.
Whoever, the money's been made already from the manufacturer to the retail establishment. And so there is no buyback. It's just, they're just buying it from you. They're going to offer you probably some bullshit.
Probably the MSRP of it and not the actual value, There are people who have firearms like AR-15s that are worth, $10,000 with the optics they have on there, with all the stuff that they have on there. I mean, they're worth ridiculous amounts of money. So I can't...
Like, okay, cool. Well, here's my lower receiver.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that somebody is going to... The government would give you the actual value of your firearm with the accessories on it. That's
hard no.
Wild to me. People have like red dots on their pistols and stuff that cost like $300-$400.
Yeah.
You're gonna give someone $1,000 for a Glock with a red dot on it? Are you really? That's what you're gonna do? I don't think so.
Hard no.
I don't think so. The next point, like we said, is buy back the assault weapons and high capacity magazines. Yeah. Biden will also institute a program to buy back weapons of war currently on our streets.
Weapons of war.
This will give individuals who now possess assault weapons or high-capacity magazines 2 options. Sell the weapons to the government or register them under the National Firearms Act.
Otherwise, you become a felon. How does that make sense? Does that make sense?
For things that you already purchased legally, registered them, did the background check, you're already on the list.
You're on the
list.
list.
But now if you don't additionally add yourself to another list and pay the $200 for every magazine, every semi-automatic rifle, anything that they decide to classify into the NFA. I guess those are the only things I can say for sure, but I can't say for certain they wouldn't do it with pistols. I don't know, you know.
You can take a guess given the
But you would
language and
have
the
to
proposals.
not only register, but pay the $200 tax stamp for every semi-automatic rifle and every quote-unquote high-capacity magazine that you already purchased, that you already legally owned.
Which
until they decide to
already
do
puts
this.
how many people out that you cannot afford to maintain?
I can't afford
the
$3,000
No.
out of pocket for shit I already own.
Most
And that's
people
why I
can't.
don't own cooler shit. If I had $3,000 to spend on guns, I would own way cooler shit than I own now. I love what I have, but I would own way cooler stuff.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I would have a real nice little EOTech piece on there. I would have some real cool stuff going on. Yeah.
Get a helmet. Did you get
Yeah.
a helmet with some night optics?
I would definitely. Nods are like really expensive,
Yeah,
like
they are.
$2, $3, $4,000.
Yeah,
For
they
like
are.
quads, they're like 7 or 8. They're super. Yeah, no, this shit's crazy expensive. The next point. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
That was the next point.
Yeah, the next point: reduce stockpiling of weapons. In order to reduce the stockpiling of firearms, Biden supports legislation restricting the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to 1. If you, in the barest of terms, if somebody wants 9,000 guns, they're going to purchase 9,000 guns.
Yep.
And I don't think that limiting them to 1 a month is going to affect
No.
that.
But it feels good because you slow down the process
Yeah.
and just make it more difficult to actually maintain your constitutional rights.
And just, for example, right, in Washington State, we've talked about this before, if you're going to purchase an AR-15 or semi-automatic rifle, there is a mandatory 10 business day waiting period as it is, which is 2 weeks plus some change, right? Because it's not going to be just 10 days. There's the processing time for your actual background check, which is generally, a little under a week. Right now, because things are so crazy, it's like 3 weeks, and then your 10 business days starts after the background check. At least that's how it's supposed to be. And so you're already waiting over a month to go and get it.
Yeah.
Things are crazy right now, so it's not usually like that. But even when I bought this pistol, it took like over 2 weeks to get it. So the process itself is already slowed down quite a bit.
Oh, hard, yeah. And that's just because of the volume. Like you said before. I had a buddy of mine just got himself a new 9mm high point. It's one of those. But you couldn't. It was like less than $200. I mean, it was a steal and a half. But he waited almost a little over 3 weeks to get his. From the minute he bought it, it was almost 3 weeks on the dot before he can go get that.
Right.
And that was considered fast for the time period.
Yeah.
We were all surprised about that one. He's like, yeah, we'll see how long the 10 days takes, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, bro, it's going to take like a month, 2 months. And 3 weeks ended up not being that bad.
You can also, I guess the overall thing is like how many people you can give guns to, but you can only shoot 1 gun at a time.
Yeah.
2, pistols. But I mean, like on the whole, you can really only shoot 1 gun at a time.
Yeah.
It's you can only drive 1 car at a time.
So you get UK on one side, American on the other side, and a board in between them, and you just drive like.
So that's the idea. Like the idea that owning more than 1 firearm makes someone more deadly because of that. It seems ludicrous. If you don't have 90 friends to use your 90 firearms, then you can only use 1.
Yep.
So it's not going to make a difference.
No.
That's.
It's all just nonsensical.
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense.
Okay, the next point's keep guns out of dangerous hands. The federal background check system, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, is one of the best tools we have to prevent gun violence, but it's only effective when it's used. Biden will enact universal background check legislation and close other loopholes that allow people who should be prohibited from purchasing firearms from making those purchases. Specifically, he will require background checks for all gun sales. That already exists.
Already in place.
That is already a thing. Again, we talked about there are some places where you can give guns as gifts.
Yeah.
Some places where it's illegal to purchase firearms for other people. That's like another thing they cover in here that they're going to close other loopholes in addition to closing the boyfriend loophole. And so purchasing, it's illegal for you to purchase a gun for somebody else.
Yep.
If the dealer knows that and allows it to go through, they can then also and will be charged federally if that's found out.
Oh, yeah.
If a crime is then done with that firearm and then Those people are charged, and it comes back to the dealer, and they find out somehow that that person knew that the person who purchased the gun was buying it for somebody else. They'll all go to prison.
Yep.
Everybody's going to prison. That already exists. You're not allowed to buy guns for somebody else. When Jordan and I bought our first pistols, because we didn't know dick about guns, right? Went online, sportsmans.com, and I bought this pistol and I bought her pistol. Mm-hmm. And then we went to the store, and she's filling out the paperwork, and on the computer it's like, so you bought both these? No, this one's for her. And they're like, oh, well, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
You're not allowed to do that. Like, and I was like, even though we're like married, I'm like, no, you cannot do that. So because of, like I said, because of the way that they do it when you buy it online and the money goes to a gift card and then you do it, we were able to like make it work that way. Mm-hmm. But you are not allowed to purchase a gun for somebody else. That's already illegal.
What you can do, from my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but you can buy, let's say, because my brother and I were talking about doing this. We ended up not doing it because I was looking at a new shotgun a year ago or something like that. And we were talking at the counter and stuff, and this guy became suspicious that we were going to do a straw purchase. Like my brother was going to buy me this gun, right?
Yeah.
And our plan essentially was for him to buy the gun in his name to do the thing. And then because I just didn't have the cash on me at the time, and it was like next week I was going to get paid, so he was going to buy it now.
Just transfer
and
it
then,
later.
Yeah, and then once he got it, we'd go and then we'd do the transfer, and so then I go in, do the background check, and pay your $45, and then it's my gun. Like that was the initial plan. We ended up not doing it because I just decided I wasn't ready to buy another shotgun at the time. But like that is not illegal,
right?
So like you can technically buy guns for people, and then they got to go in and do the whole thing, and then you transfer the title over.
Right.
And it's
like, when you do that, they're going to run a background check when you go to transfer the title, because to transfer the title for a firearm has to be done federally, and anybody who is able to transfer the title is required federally to do a background check to do it.
Yep.
The only time that people are able to get guns without a background check being completed is when the background check is in processing and takes too long. There are many states that have like waiting periods, like 3 days, that if it's not within 3 days, you can take it. And there is nothing that would indicate to me that there is a requirement based on the Constitution that you have to wait until the background check is back. We can talk all day about whether or not we think people should be getting background checks to do firearms.
Yeah,
but
like the problem enough.
But the problem
already
at that point, right, is not that, this law is a problem. It's that the background check system is not adequate to handle the traffic that the American populace is requiring from it. It is within our rights and protected by the government for us to be purchasing their firearms, these firearms. If you, as the government of a state or of the federal government, of whatever, as the state in the general term, if you would like to create these barriers, it is then on you to ensure that the need is met and the requirements are met for the people who are creating this need.
So that it does not become an impingement on the possession of those firearms, to use more of the constitutional language.
It is not the problem of the individual that the federal government has an inadequate system for processing background checks.
Yeah, which anybody that's ever experienced any kind of government portal or government website or government system ever in their life can go, well, of course it doesn't work very well.
Especially someone like me or you who has zero criminal history in the slightest.
You don't know me.
It is not my fucking problem that you can't get my background check through in 5 seconds because there's nothing on it.
Yes.
There's nothing on it. There is no reason if the waiting period is 3 days that it's not done in 3 days. If I have nothing on my background check, if there's nothing there, there's no reason it's not done almost instantly.
That's just because it's sitting at the bottom of a stack
in
somebody's office.
And it used to be, in Washington, that if you had your concealed pistol license, then they could just run your pistol license background check, because you have to get it done like every 5 years to have your pistol license. So, but that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, right.
So the idea that there's a loophole in which people are able to buy guns without a background check doesn't exist. And if it does, it's inadequacy of the bureaucracy of the government.
Yeah.
That is the problem here. It is not that there's inadequate laws to protect this. They are inadequately processing the amount of background checks that the populace of the United States requires.
Because the law already exists.
It's already there.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
You cannot commit a straw purchase. You cannot use the boyfriend loophole. That is a crime. It is not an open loophole that you can do. It just you're able to commit that crime
Right.
because we're all free Americans who can do whatever we want like that. And if you go out and buy a firearm and then just give it to somebody, that's you committing a felony. And there's nothing that technically stands in your way from doing that other than the law itself, which you will be held accountable to.
Yeah. This next point, or one of the next ones, because this is here, reinstate the Obama-Biden policy to keep guns out of the hands of certain people unable to manage their affairs for mental reasons.
That's your red flag laws.
Right, red flag laws. And again, anytime you fill out a form, because it's the same form federally across the board in any state that you have to fill out for a background check to get a firearm, you have to answer on there whether or not you have been adjudicated mentally defective or have ever been locked up in a mental institution. You have to answer that question.
Yep.
That's already there. This already exists. The red flag laws is
punishable by under perjury.
A federal red flag law is fucking horrifying.
It is.
It's horrifying to be done on a state-by-state basis as it is. But the idea that the federal government would then take it upon itself to have a federal red flag system is even more terrifying and not something I could ever get behind. That is 1,000% unconstitutional. That's some horseshit. The next point, close the hate crime loophole. Biden will enact legislation prohibiting an individual who has been convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime or received an enhanced sentence for a misdemeanor because of hate or bias in its commission from purchasing or possessing a firearm.
That itself is terrifying as well.
Yes.
Because what constitutes a hate crime, and if you are convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime, apparently there are misdemeanor hate crimes because of hate or bias in its commission, which is about as subjective a position as you can probably take. You're just leaving that. There is so much room for interpretation. There's
I would need way more, because we talked kind of when John Satek was here about like personal and like large scale political views. You know, personally, I'm not okay with things that really hinder most people's abilities to get a firearm. From a policy standpoint, I would need way more information about this to decide whether or not. I don't know.
And I will say,
you're committing hate crimes on a regular basis in the form of like burning crosses on black people's property and telling them that you're going to kill them, you probably shouldn't buy a firearm.
Word.
But again,
okay with that.
If you've done something where you fired somebody and then they sued you for discrimination and like something happened where there was some sort of miscommunication that hinders you from buying a firearm, I don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? So there's like, I would need way more information about this to be able to decide where I would be at on that, to see what side of the fence it's on.
And I will say this, so far, like a lot of these things that we've hit, they throw in there like Biden will enact legislation. He will enact legislation, which means that supposedly these things will go through a legislative process. So there will be a bill.
If the bill hits his desk,
yes,
he'll sign it.
Yeah,
is what that means. Because as we all know from civics class, the president doesn't create legislation. He doesn't pass it to the House. He can certainly have people write it. He can write it. He can have a hand in writing. All these things can happen. Yep. But the president has no hand in legislation other than the final signature or veto, in which it, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's why it says that in all these things. Well, I'll sign it. If it gets here, I'll sign it, you know? And there are some things that he says he'll do with executive power. There are some things that are added in there. There are, man, that's a whole, I don't even want to get into that. We could talk about the expansion of the executive for like literally an entire show.
Yeah. I'll just say, if you can do something on the level of DACA through executive action, the door seems pretty open to see what you can and can't get away with.
Yeah. Next thing, close the Charleston loophole. The Charleston loophole allows people to complete a firearms purchase if their background check is not completed within 3 business days. Biden supports the proposal in Enhanced Background Checks Act of 2019, which extends the timeline from 3 to 10 business days. Biden will also direct the Federal Bureau of Investigation to put on his desk within the first 100 days as president a report detailing the cases in which background checks are not completed within 10 business days and steps the federal government can take to reduce or eliminate the occurrence. Okay. Maybe expand the fucking system so that more people can do goddamn background checks. Maybe hire more people to do the goddamn background checks. What is the problem here? Do more background checks. What can you do to process more background checks? That seems like what we should be doing here.
Yeah.
Process them in a faster and more effective manner.
Because the criminal background check system is not just used for buying firearms.
If we're supposed
it's used for landlords, running background checks,
anybody
employers,
who's purchasing a background or has to do a background check.
I could start running background checks on potential employees if I wanted to.
I would be more concerned about hiring somebody before. Man, I don't even know that I can say that, but I don't like. I am extremely concerned at the idea, the knowledge that there are many people who begin careers and jobs before their background check comes back. They're like, well, we're just waiting for your background check to come back. You know what I'm saying? That shit happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. That terrifies me. So I don't understand.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Where the confusion is in.
It's probably just an old, antiquated system that needs to be, I hate to say it, but you get somebody like, hire a couple Google engineers to do it for you, and it would probably be a pretty sweet little system that you could be, it'll probably come with an app that somebody at the store can just scan your driver's license, and in 30 seconds, you got a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It would probably be that simple, considering all of the data that is being looked at essentially is just looking for federal crimes that you have committed on your record.
Interesting that you say that, because the next one says close the fugitive from justice loophole created by the Trump administration. Because of actions by the Trump administration, records of almost 500,000 fugitives from justice who were prohibited from purchasing firearms were deleted from the background check system. The Biden administration will restore these records and enact legislation to make clear that people facing arrest warrants are prohibited from purchasing or possessing firearms.
That seems like a way bigger problem than the fact that these 500,000 fugitives from justice had their records just, it seems more concerning that their records just were deleted out of the background check system than the fact that they're not in the background check system. How did they, why?
And this is, again, something that's more similar to me for the hate crime loophole. Like, I'm not willing to just buy the narrative that Donald Trump just wants more guns on the streets, so he just deleted 500,000 criminal records from the background check system.
No.
There are many, many, many things in which people have their right to possess firearms taken away, in which I don't think that should be the case.
Yeah.
There are very few things in which I think should hinder people from purchasing firearms. And so I'm not willing to just be like, oh, just throw the names back on the list.
Yeah.
And well, why? Why were they taken off of the list? Like, this is something that I would need more information on. And so
the words written down in this little document should carry much more weight than we give them when it comes to the Second Amendment and firearms in general, because it's such a polarizing topic because of the nature, just due to the nature of what a firearm is and what it does.
Right.
And it terrifies people to no end, the fact that we have this right to carry these things. I mean, it is if you are one of, the godly persuasion, it's your God-given right to have these things. It is a basic human right at that point, what we're talking about. And how lightly we feel like, or how easily we feel like we can just pass all these laws that blatantly contradict what is written down in the Constitution there, and we just be like, well, I mean, they obviously didn't mean it like that, so we're just going to come up with all these different laws to infringe on people's rights to carry firearms.
Well, and in that, ignore the dozens, if not hundred years of precedent that came after that, instilling what people were required to have, the rights that they had, the things that they could and could not possess. Just ignoring all of that to set a new precedent for today.
Just seems so. It seems utopian.
It is.
It just seems utopian.
Revisionist history.
Yeah.
For certain.
100%.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a great podcast.
The next point is end the online sale of firearms and ammunition. Biden will
enact legislation
to prohibit all online sales of firearms, ammunition, kits, and gun parts. Okay, so
there goes.
We talked about this a little bit, right? Economy. Again, it's not like you can just purchase a gun online and just have it sent to your house. If you're an FFL, you can do that because you're a fucking FFL and you've gone through copious amounts of paperwork and nonsense to become a federal firearms licensor. But that's it, and even then, most of those aren't happening online. You're calling the company and being like, hey, can I get one of these from you?
Yeah.
And I'll buy this and then we'll do whatever. You can't just buy a machine gun online.
No.
And so the idea that you could just buy a gun and have it sent to your house is ludicrous. I don't want to talk about PADs. That's something else.
Yeah, right.
So, okay. So after that, something else that I think is a really interesting point that I would love to bring up, right? A big problem buying ammunition in stores, the stores can only have so much.
Yeah.
Right? Also,
can only keep it on the shelves for so long.
If you are somebody, a veteran perhaps, right, who is disabled, who has served this country and chooses to exercise your Second Amendment, and you have a hard time getting into the store, you can't go and purchase your firearms. You have a hard time getting into the store, but you have big enough property, you can drive out to your property, you can go shooting on your property because that's something you enjoy. You've earned the right to do so. You're retired. You're doing all this shit. But you have a really hard time getting into town. Maybe you're not allowed to drive. Maybe you can't drive car, but you can get into a whatever. This is a really huge example. The point is, right, if you are unable to get into a store, should you then be prohibited from being able to exercise your Second Amendment? Right? Especially if you're somebody who's disabled, who is at a disadvantage, you're going to be discriminated against by the federal government because you can't exercise your Second Amendment fairly because you're unable to go into a store. So are they then going to allow you to buy it over the phone and have someone drive it to your house? What exceptions are going to be made for people with disabilities who can't go into a store to freely exercise their Second Amendment?
I get where you're going with that, and it is a good point because it does.
Where are you at now?
A lot
Left?
of different things, but technically speaking, that could never happen in the United States because every commercial building has to meet federally mandated ADA requirements, which is the American Disabilities Act.
I'm saying if you can't drive and shit, like your ability to get to the store is hindered. That's what not that you can't go into the store. Your ability to get to the store. There are people who can't drive. There are all kinds of reasons. People can't drive. If you live out in the country, the idea that you would then have to wait hours and hours and hours for a potential access bus so that someone could come and pick you up and then drive you into town, and then you have to wait at the store then for access bus. There's public. Do you know what I'm talking about? An access bus? Yeah. So that's not that somebody couldn't go into the store, but they couldn't get to the store is what I'm talking about. Should you then be discriminated against in your ability to exercise your Second Amendment right freely because you don't have the ability to readily go into a store? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. The idea that you would hinder these things is fucking ludicrous.
Also consider that we're talking about Joe Biden, and maybe he's going to shut down America, and you won't be able to go to the store.
Words.
You won't be able to do those things.
Words.
Also, you can't buy it online.
Another, and I don't want to sound like the conspiratorial one here, but, as we work our way down this, wish list of ideas for his gun policies, it's just sounding more and more and more like the end goal is to just make it impossible to have firearms around.
We're talking about any type of components, gun parts, anything, right?
Yeah, so you can't buy that.
If this goes out while I'm out in the woods shooting, this is the gun that I carry every day to protect myself. This is the only firearm that I was able to get, right? The only one that I can have because I can only buy one a month. If this breaks and now I have to go into a store and they don't have it, they have to order it because this is a fucking great example. This is a Glock 20, right? So it's a 10mm firearm. Super uncommon. I have an extremely hard time finding fucking ammunition for this. All kinds of shit, right? If a particular part in this breaks and I have to wait 30 days before it can be shipped from fucking Austria into America so that I can have it, I am then expected to not be able to protect myself, defend myself, freely exercise my Second Amendment right until one of these can come into a store for me to be able to purchase it. That seems fucking ludicrous to me. And we're not just talking about this. We're talking about optics, lights to go on here. Anything. Any of these gun parts is the most ambiguous and ill-defined term I have heard since fucking assault weapon.
Right.
It's ludicrous to me. This doesn't make any sense. And the idea that it makes anybody safer. People who are committing crimes are not purchasing guns in stores. They're purchasing them on the street. So whether or not you can buy them online doesn't fucking matter. They're buying them on the street. They're buying fucking banana clips for their AKs that are Chinese made on the street. They're buying bullshit on the street. Any of these things that you're enacting in a store do not apply to people who are already actively not following the law.
Yep.
It's
like, here's one magazine for my hunting rifle, right? You may note there's a massive gap in the back of this thing. It's because this is some kind of weird universal magazine, right? And I've noticed throughout my trips lately that I have a really hard time loading another round into the chamber because as this thing moves around, bullets might the rounds might go to the back of the thing, and then
Yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden my bolt cannot grasp this thing and push it forward into the chamber. What happens if all of a sudden, I want to get a new magazine, and I can't now because the ban's in place.
And my big point, I'm going to talk about this at the end too. My big point by talking about all these things, giving these like what seem like odd examples of like things in my firearm, disabled people. My point with this is that these gun laws do not do anything to actively decrease gun violence, because the people who are perpetrating gun violence are not following these laws as it is. These don't affect the way that they purchase their firearms. That doesn't affect the way that they use firearms, because they are not freely expressing the Second Amendment. They're harming people with their firearm use, right?
Yep.
They are not freely expressing the Second Amendment.
Nope.
So this does not do anything to bring down gun violence, to stop gun crime. All this does is hinder the rights of free American people.
Law-abiding citizens.
Which is, I mean, fundamentally unconstitutional.
Hard, yeah.
And the idea that so many people would be buying into this wholesale is disturbing to me and deeply concerning. This is not about crime. This is about getting guns out of American hands. And I'd hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but there's no other logical deduction to be made from this other than all this is to limit firearms, hinder your ability to have them, and hinder your ability to use them freely.
And I think the next point there adds a little bit of weight to that argument, giving states incentives to set up gun licensing programs. So now you have the federal government now actively involved in state legislature, pushing them to restrict firearm purchases even more.
Right.
By setting up licensing programs.
Incentivize state extreme risk laws, which is the red flag laws, create an effective program to ensure individuals who become prohibited from possessing firearms relinquish their weapons. These are all different names for red flag laws.
Yeah. So they're pushing it on the federal level as well as incentivizing states to push it on the state level.
Right. Give state incentives to set up gun licensing programs, adequately fund the background check system. Well, that sounds great. That's the one point that I can.
Expand the background check
if we're going to be requiring background checks, good Lord.
Dump some money into that,
funded. Maybe. If you're acknowledging here that it's inadequately funded, but you would like a report from the FBI on what we can do to fix the background check system, maybe put the right amount of goddamn money into it.
That might be nice. Because it's run by the FBI.
It's scary to me that he's acknowledging here that it's inadequately funded. We're like, but what's the problem here? Why it's people aren't willing to wait. You're not funding it. What the fuck?
Don't make me laugh too hard. I gotta pee.
I hate doing that. I hate like not saying anything. But okay, so red flag laws are something that we've talked about in the past, and there are some circumstances in which people maybe should not have their firearms around them for a while if they're going through something and they need help. I have serious problem with that not being done by a family member.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very comfortable that if Carolina called me and said, I'm like really concerned about Colin, like I think this and this and this, like I am more than happy to come to your home and remove the firearms from your home and take them to my house until Colin is done with the river. I do not feel comfortable with a police officer coming into your home and then being in state custody.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly that should be done by a responsible individual that you have in your life who is looking after you. And this is an indicator of me to the dissolving of community in which people are even tapped into the lives of the people around them, that they are not able to. There are many family members that report these things, but there are people on the street that could report them. There are people that you work with that could report them. There are, I watch.
And I could see a lot of problems with even family members too. I mean, there's a lot of animosity within family units as well. I mean, I think you have you have experience in that, I think, pretty well. Understanding that it comes and goes, and sometimes, I've seen cases with people where there's like false allegations of like rape in the family, and it was just because anger at somebody and just made something up, and it can go for years and years, and people can be potentially looking at lots and lots of time in federal prison for something that's not true. And what's to stop that on that end too? And it just essentially alludes back to what you were talking about with the erosion and failure anymore of just establishing any form of community and understanding, where everything we're talking about could potentially be handled at the lowest level within your friends, familyhood, and community, if those things were still strong enough to hold weight in society, which is a tough call now. It would be nice if we were. That would be the dream.
Well, and one of my bigger concerns about things like this is, like, every Tuesday, Grand Thumb puts out a video, right? And so every Tuesday at work, I'm watching these videos. They're perfectly appropriate. There's nothing wrong with them. But if somebody who had the wrong view of firearms saw me watching a bunch of gun-related videos and they decided to fucking call because they're scared that I'm going to, like, kill a bunch of people, commit a mass shootings, come to work and kill everybody, something like that, they can easily call. I have no idea what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And now I have to go through this whole deal where the police are taking my firearms. I have to go through psychological evaluations, like all this bullshit.
And probably on your own dime.
Because somebody saw a video that they didn't understand. You know? And that's, again, it's an extreme, kind of an extreme circumstance. But
it's a lot closer to reality, I think, than the opposite.
But that type of shit really freaks me out. Opening the door for a scenario like that is concerning to me, that it might more readily and widely affect law-abiding citizens is deeply concerning to me.
Yeah, definitely.
The next big point here is addressing the deadly combination of guns and domestic violence. I'm not going to read this here, not because I don't care, but because it's a lot. They talk about the boyfriend loophole, the Violence Against Women Act, Reauthorization Act of 2019. And so under here they talk about establishing a new tax, or they talk about the boyfriend loophole, stalking loophole, people who are convicted of domestic violence not being able to get firearms. Again, these are policy issues that we could discuss at length, that I don't necessarily have a problem with. I've seen many people with histories of domestic violence. I have seen the way that can escalate rapidly. So again, but those are case by case things that I am hesitant to apply broadly to the United States.
There's no one size fits all blanket policy.
So again, it's not. I just would hate for people to be like, oh, so you think that fucking wife beaters should be able to get firearms? Like, well, no, not necessarily. But I also don't think that all of it should be. There are extenuating circumstances to all kinds of things. I'm not saying that beating your wife is something that you can excuse, but there are
a lot of situations.
I'm just not willing to do it all in the whole. You know, and I don't think that that's ludicrous.
I mean, I could tell you multiple anecdotal experiences where I have known men who have gone to jail, jail, not prison, because they were falsely accused of domestic abuse when in fact it was the opposite.
We saw people get Mewtwo. Oh my God, fucking Johnny Depp. Right? Yes. Johnny Depp just lost his role as What's-His-Face in the Harry Potter movies because his girlfriend lied about things that he had done. And Jordan and I just talked about this. There was definitely nastiness that happened. There was abuse, emotional and stuff like that. But she was talking about him beating her and shit like that. And the things that she alleged did not happen.
No.
He had to go through all these court battles. I mean, the shit is still ongoing. And now he just lost an enormous role in a huge movie franchise because of shit that didn't happen.
Isn't that why he essentially signed on to do all those the late stage crappy pirate movies? It's because he was going broke because he was going through that whole battle. I wouldn't be surprised. His is ex-wife, right?
Ex-girlfriend, ex-wife,
something like that.
Amber Heard, is that? Yeah. So whatever their relationship is. So, but yeah, horrible. Horrible. And that shit we saw happen all over the place.
This is how you get men's rights activists.
And that's terrifying. The idea that
boo, men's rights activists. Boo.
It's November. Let's about men's health. November. No. So the next point. In addition, President Biden will establish a new task force on online harassment and abuse to focus on the connection between mass shootings, online harassment, extremism, and violence against women.
I love the government's responses to let's create a task force.
Yeah.
Let's create a task force to study this. That'd be an interesting study.
Well, and there's
including
the internet has
porn,
affected people
fakes.
in many horrible, horrible ways, and we've seen in the case of Dylan Roof and shit like that, people going online being extremists, radicalized. Thank you, and then doing something terrible. You know, so there's obviously some connection. I don't think that's on its face. I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, I would love to see more on it because the way that they slip in online harassment, extremism, and violence against women. One of these things is not like the other, and I don't think that it's that hidden.
Honestly, you could make a standalone bill on that, just online harassment alone, without bringing it into any kind
Yes.
of gun legislation.
The next point, expand the use of evidence-based lethality assessments by law enforcement in cases of domestic violence. Lethality assessments, sometimes called risk or danger assessments, are a proven strategy to help law enforcement officers identify domestic violence survivors who are at a high risk of being killed by their abusers. These survivors are then connected with social service programs, that can offer services and safety planning. An evaluation of the lethality assessment program created by the Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence showed promising results. Increased federal funding will incentivize jurisdictions to take advantage of implementing these programs more widely. I don't think that I wish that, this is not the first time I've said this, but I wish that my Aunt Jo was still alive. When my Aunt Jo was alive, before she died, she was a domestic violence and abuse advocate on the Joint Base. And so she worked hand in hand and sometimes head to head with the military, dealing with domestic violence cases among servicemen and their wives.
Which there is no shortage of.
At least at the time that I heard the statistics several years ago, the Joint Base had the highest percentage, average rate or whatever of domestic violence of any U.S. military base.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's very prevalent in a lot of these high-stress careers.
Yeah. So I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. I am, again, always hesitant to begin classifying people and, making them statistics and shit. People get lost in the fold and bad things happen to people.
Why are we talking about this in gun legislation?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about with your plan for guns? Is obviously that all is related to his stance on guns somewhere. So
and it seems like it has more to do with like the overhaul of law enforcement than anything else. Let's add this into when we're talking about the money that police departments get, add this to the provision in there that in order to get this federal money, you have to also do this.
Yeah.
You need to, we're going to give you money for this, but you have to do it. You have to pay for it. We're going to give you money for it, but you got to do it. It seems odd to. Anyway, the next step, make sure firearm owners take on the responsibility of ensuring their weapons are used safely. Put America on the path to ensure that 100% of firearms sold in America are smart guns. Okay,
smart
so this
guns.
And again, Officer Brian, since you're listening, you asked specifically about this, so I'm glad that it's like an individual point, right? I've done a fair amount of research on smart guns, right? I think they're super interesting.
Yep.
I think they're pretty cool, especially in the science fiction portion like you were talking about.
Judge
That's
Dredd.
really cool. Yeah.
I immediately thought about that when I started looking into smart guns.
So let's read. Today we have the technology to allow only authorized users to fire a gun. For example, existing smart gun technology requires a fingerprint match before use. Biden believes we should work to eventually require that 100% of firearms sold in the U.S. are smart guns. But right now, the NRA and gun manufacturers are bullying firearm dealers who try to sell these guns. Biden will stand up against these bullying tactics and issue a call to action for gun manufacturers, dealers, and other public and private entities to take steps to accelerate our transition to smart guns. Okay. This technology... Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that's a lot.
This technology does exist.
Yes.
However, like many new things on the cutting edge, it is expensive as balls.
Yep.
And it's not because the NRA and Remington and BCM and all these people are trying to fight to keep it out of the market. It's because it's super fucking expensive to put a fingerprint reader that lasts an extended period of time in a firearm that works every single time and takes less than a half a second so you can use it instantly. Because if you have to draw a firearm... carry my firearm appendix. If I have to draw it, I have to wait 2 seconds before it reads my fingerprint before I can actually shoot. There are many people outside of competition shooting that draw and fire their weapons sub 1 second. So the idea that I would have to wait any longer than that for it to verify that before I can use it is dangerous to my safety and makes me not want to own it. Right? There are other ones that I've seen that have like bracelets or like rings, I think, that that connect up to this. But again, one of the big things is then batteries, right?
Yes.
One of the great things about a firearm is that it's fucking mechanical.
Yep.
Don't have to worry about something like mechanical things break, but these are all mostly made out of steel. Like the bottom part is polymer. All the working bits in here are all metal.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
High grade.
So again, when you're talking about smart guns, you're adding another area that it could break.
Yep.
Another potential
Point of failure.
another potential point of failure, which is something that people who carry firearms regularly don't want.
No.
Right? And anybody who's going to buy a smart gun is either somebody who knows nothing about guns or knows a lot of shit about guns.
Yes.
The gray area is not going to exist.
Nope.
Because if you don't have a bunch of money and you know nothing, right? If you have all the money in the world and you don't know shit about guns, and if something happens, you're like, I need to carry a firearm. Like, well, I'm just going to buy a gun that only I can use, because then I don't have to worry. So, there's any number of people that would want that. Most people don't. Just
Yes.
as general firearms owner, they don't want it,
Yep.
right? So that's one thing that I know isn't true about this. They're not being bullied. First of all, the demand isn't there, so the competition in the free market isn't there. Remington
Especially
and
because they're too expensive.
Right. These big companies aren't getting into it because people don't want them.
Yep.
They want cheaper guns that work more effectively, that they can get more of and have all the time and fuck with and put new things on and do all this stuff. They don't
This is
want
how all new technology works.
Right.
We've seen
Right.
it time and time
even
again.
time.
If we were to look at this in 10 years, I bet you smart gun technology and just the sheer amount of smart guns out in society will probably be exponentially higher than it is now.
Certainly.
Because the technology will have increased to a point where people will make decisions based off of that, whether or not it's something they want, the reliability of the technology, how it feels, and then the entry cost to get into the market. And all that stuff will eventually be worked out. It's no different than, the original smartphone compared to the smartphones we have now. It gets cheaper and cheaper to get better and better technology, and then prices drop even lower. And could be something that we could see. I would like to see. I would love to be able to see that technology actually in a very workable state at some point.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful utopian idea to have, but not every single firearm is built to do that. First of all,
Right.
How many firearms are built that do not have pistol grip style handles where you could do a palm index print or something like that? Or, my hunting rifle, for example, how am I, maybe around the portion of the stock and and how does that work? How do you power it? So on. So I just don't.
Well, and two,
I like the concept.
another point for why many people don't want them is I don't want a gun that my wife doesn't have the ability to use if she needs it, or that one of my friends needs if they need it. You know what I'm saying? I want you to be able to use it.
Yeah.
I obviously don't want somebody I don't want to use it. But if you're in my home and I'm not, if you're house sitting for me, right? Somebody breaks in and I have a firearm there that's in like the stop box, and the thing to the stop box because I trust you, it's whatever, or the combination of my gun safe, whatever the fuck, right? If I'm irresponsible, quote unquote, and it's sitting out on my bedside table, right? And I decided to leave that one there and I traveled somewhere. Somebody breaks into the house. I want you to be able to defend yourself adequately if you know how to use that.
Yep.
If any other thing happens, if somebody breaks in the house and you are there, I want to be able to hand you a gun while I'm there so that you can use one too while I'm also using a gun. So we have two guns. That sounds advantageous to me. I don't want to have to worry about, hold on, let me program this and put your fucking palm print in it first so that you can use it while we're waiting for somebody with a gun to come in here and fucking shoot us both.
It'll be like just like the original MySpace app when you had your top friends. You can have your 5 top friends.
Yeah. So I could see if you could somehow, I could see that being more appealing if you could have more than one person, saved into it, so that I could have
utopian. Bro.
Exactly. That's a thing that's free market competition that you have to wait years and years and years for, and the market doesn't exist yet for that competition to exist. So I think that it's a great idea. I think that in due time we'll be there, but right now, because the appeal to it is so minimal, the demand for it is minimal. It's not the gun industry. It's not any of this shit. It's not
the way they phrase that when they're talking about bullying firearms dealers. That's
nonsense.
True. That's not true.
It's
at
nonsense. All. No. So I think that's cool in time, but right now it's just mad concerning.
Yeah.
So are you gonna go pee?
I'm gonna go pee.
Go. Okay, so the next one, hold adults accountable for giving minors access to firearms. Biden supports legislation holding adults criminally and civilly liable for directly or negligently giving a minor access to a firearm, regardless of whether the minor actually gains possession of the firearm. That's...
So despite whether or not the kid takes it?
If someone comes into your home and you have a firearm somewhere where somebody could get to it, then you could be criminally and civilly liable for that, even if they're not. Okay, so we've talked about this in the past. As a parent, I do feel strongly that people should be securely storing their firearms. I don't own a firearm that isn't securely stored or is in a place where my son could get to it and actively use it. I have also spoken in the past on plans that I believe the federal government could use to help remedy the solution in getting people safes that purchase their first firearm so they can safely secure their firearms. This says here, Colin, just to read it for you. Yes. Whether or not the person actually gains possession of the firearm. Make sure that you read that, right? So, again, like I said, as a parent, I do believe that people should be safely securing their firearms.
Yeah.
There have been mass shootings that we've seen and acts of violence in which kids got into their parents' firearms. Fucking Armanjar. I've used this example 1,000 times, but just the little kid at Armanjar who accidentally shot their friend got into their parents' firearm who just didn't securely store it, right?
Yep.
I don't think the government should be mandating this, but I believe that as a responsible firearms owner, you should want to and should be securely storing your firearm.
Yes.
I do think that you should be held liable if something happens and you didn't, but I don't think that if a cop walks into your house and you have your pistol on your bedside table and you have a kid, that you should then get a ticket or go to jail because of that. I don't believe
we don't live in Minority Report.
No. I definitely think that cop should be like, hey, you got a fucking kid running around here.
What are you doing here?
Put your gun away. Like, this is dangerous as shit. This is not a good idea. I get security and all the whatever, but that's a bad idea. You should really have that locked up. We have a program down to the station. You can get a whatever, you can get a safe, you can get a box, you can get a whatever. Like, I don't, like I said, I've talked in the past. I would be fine with paying a $20 tax on every firearm I bought if the first time you bought a firearm, you got a free gun safe or a gun cabinet, that you would hold 3 long guns and a shelf that'll hold 3 pistols. I'm fine with adding a $20 tax to that to make sure that people have the ability to safely secure their firearms. Fuck the gun locks, the nonsense, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
the gun locks are bullshit. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine. I'll eat that cost as a gun buyer. $20 every gun.
$20.
I'll do it.
Cheapest gun safe ever manufactured.
It's a gun cabinet. It's just a gun cabinet. It's not a gun safe. It's a gun cabinet.
Because once you buy one, you have your gun cabinet.
You have and you have no reason not to have it locked up.
Yeah,
we
and
gave
you
it
could
to
fill it up from there, and then you'll ultimately be contributing.
Buy a new one.
Like let's see, 6 times 20. So you got $120 in there that you've essentially bought and paid for everyone's at that point. That's
so
there are things that you could use as incentives to make incentivize people to be more responsible.
Yes.
Right. And what we're really you ever heard of course you have, but the phrase, you can't fix stupid? Yeah, that's essentially what these, like 1639 was an attempt to fix stupid.
Yeah.
Where you can't pass laws to protect people from themselves. It's counterintuitive to the whole situation.
So let's move on to the next point here.
Law enforcement.
Require gun owners to safely store their weapons by legislation requiring gun owners to store weapons safely in their homes. I guess we just talked about that. Yep. Empower law enforcement to effectively enforce our gun laws. Prioritize prosecutions of straw purchasers. This is already illegal. Yep. Straw purchasers buy a firearm on behalf of an individual who cannot pass a background check. This is already legal. If they find out they're doing it, it's a crime. So I don't.
So we're just going to prioritize it even more. That's cool.
Okay, so they won't sit in jails for as long. I guess that's fine. I don't have a problem.
Why not, I guess.
That's less tax money that I'll be paying in jail fees, so I guess that's fine. Notify law enforcement when a potential firearms purchaser fails a background check. I would be shocked to hear of a firearms dealer that knew somebody failed a background check and didn't say shit to anybody. That seems weird. I'm sure that it does happen, but too often when prohibited persons attempt to buy a firearm, fail a background check, state and local law enforcement is never informed of the intent. As president, Biden will direct the FBI to set up a process to ensure family notifications of denials to state and local law enforcement, and he'll support legislation to codify this process. This empowers law enforcement to follow up and ensure prohibited persons do not attempt to acquire firearms through other means.
I don't like this at all.
If they don't, let me ask this. If the cops don't know where the illegal guns are coming from, how are they going to stop somebody from buying an illegal gun? That's just my question on the tail end of that one.
Yeah, that
I don't
makes a few assumptions there, doesn't it?
right. I don't, how else are you gonna stop?
If you're not supposed to buy a firearm for whatever reason, and you go in and fail background check, the cops show up your house, and then they're gonna find out through interrogation, I would assume, where you're going to buy your illegal gun, because obviously you have an intent to go buy an illegal gun. So they're going to come ask you why or how or where you're going to get one.
There are also, again, this is maybe an extreme example, but there are times in which people fail background checks for reasons they don't know.
Yeah,
like
that's my
James
concern here.
James O'Keefe just ran into that, in which like he doesn't have any felonies or anything like that, but he went to buy a firearm, and like 4 different places he was denied, and the FBI had him on a list to not be able to buy a gun, and he had to like write letters and shit to get taken off. That was a thing, Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, that absolutely happened. There's videos on Project Veritas YouTube, that the FBI put him on a list, and all he had to do was write a letter, and he was like almost instantly taken off.
Oh yeah,
they totally blacklisted his ass and just didn't say shit because he
then got caught.
Yep, and then got caught. That is absolutely a thing.
It seems like a massive invasion of privacy. You know, how are you supposed to know if like you said, like James O'Keefe example, or like you have something from 20 years ago that it got expunged off your record or something, and it might be sitting there, and all of a sudden you, for whatever reason, fail this automatic background check. Now the FBI is going to be informed that you failed a background check?
Yeah.
Okay, you get, instead of the green light, you get the red light. Sorry, you can't buy a gun here. Go away.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we're going to allow, much less codify in law, the FBI has to be made aware that you failed a background check.
And then they're going to track you down
Yes.
for an undetermined reason. Like
Because
you said, we're not sure exactly why they're going to do that, but then they're going to come and hunt you down. Not hunt you down, but track you down.
Yeah.
And find out
and watch you now because
why you
they're
wanted
afraid.
to buy a gun,
Yeah.
or why you tried to buy one when you couldn't, or I
The
don't.
last sentence of this really terrifies me. This empowers law enforcement to follow up and ensure prohibited persons do not attempt to acquire firearms through other means. How fucking long are you going to follow me to make sure I don't go out and buy one off the street?
What are you going to do to attempt to ensure to ensure that I don't attempt to acquire firearms through another means? How are you going to do that?
I mean, it makes about as much sense as most of this bullshit. So.
And I'm not like, what are you going to do? I mean,
Security
I'm
state.
actually, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
What is the process for that? What steps are you going to take to ensure that I don't attempt to acquire a firearm through other means if I'm a prohibited person?
Also, aren't we defunding the police at this point? Or
Sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right,
I
the
just
next
get
step.
confused with
No,
all
no,
the
that's
cross
a
streams here.
valid question, Offie. Valid question. All right, the next step. Excuse me. Require firearms owners to report if their weapon is lost or stolen.
Hard, yeah.
This is another thing I would be. I mean, I guess I don't. I'm not okay with it. Only on the grounds that I don't like the idea that the government is telling anybody what to do. But the idea that somebody would spend. The cheapest handgun I know of is that High Point for like $189. Yeah. The idea that someone is going to spend even $180 on something, have it stolen, and just not say shit about it seems really fucking weird. Because what do you lose by reporting it stolen? It doesn't cost you money to file a police report. They're not going to cost you money. They're not going to charge you to get it back if they find it.
Except if we institute every single one of these policy provisions lined out thus far, you might be hesitant to report your lost or stolen firearm because you obviously mishandled it in its storage and now might be legally liable for that. That's what they call a disincentive, people.
Right.
And so again, we're contradicting.
If you're someone
Our own
who's
ends
like,
here.
I fucked around, it takes one time, you know? If you're like, I fucked around and I left so-and-so thing. I left my gun in my car, right?
Yeah.
On occasion, this is terrible. On occasion, I will leave my gun in a bag or something, right? Or like in my car if I have to go into a store where I can't have it or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? If that happens, somebody broke into my car in the time I'm in this store and steals my firearm. Fuck. I didn't have it. Am I going to then be charged because I didn't have it securely stored in my car while I was doing this, while I left it unattended? I can see how that would be a concerning circumstance. I'm still, personally, I would still call, but I would be, once the cop got there, I'm like, am I going to like get hemmed up for because I left it in my car. Like, what's going to be the, like, I know some people have locking glove boxes or shit in their car, and I bet if you put it in there and then locked it or whatever,
then somebody steals your car.
But somebody just pops. I mean, you can just fucking pop it open with a crowbar. Whatever you smashed my window with or jimmied it open with, you can use to pry open my fucking
Same with
toolbox.
like a gun safe. Nothing to stop somebody. Like if you're gone on vacation and all your guns are locked up in your gun safe, what's to stop somebody from breaking into your house with a fucking hand truck and pulling out your entire safe?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
There's no way you can permanently mount that shit totally and
because you have to get it into your house some way.
Yeah. You got to get it in, and then I mean you could concrete the motherfucker, I guess, in some kind of weird case inside your house, and that might be really difficult, but you could still get it out.
So the idea that somebody would have their firearm stolen and not report it seems pretty far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
The next one is stop ghost guns, right?
Ghost guns
is a huge talking point. So I'll just read this real quick. One way people who cannot legally obtain a gun may gain access to a weapon is by assembling one on their own, either by buying a kit of disassembled gun parts or 3D printing a working firearm. Biden will stop the proliferation of these so-called ghost guns by passing legislation required that purchasers of gun kits or 3D printing code pass a federal background check. Additionally, Biden will ensure that authority for firearm exports stay within the State Department and, if needed, reverse a proposed rule by President Trump. This will ensure the State Department continues to block the code used to 3D printed firearms to print firearms from being made available on the internet. So we talked about this, I think, 2 years ago, and I think that I was like in favor of it at the time, where somebody was going to release you can still, first of all, you can still find them, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's just this one particular set that they talked about that they're blocking, right? But you can still absolutely find the codes to 3D print guns.
Oh yeah, I mean you can get a trial, not membership, but to a trial
CAD
program of CAD. You can design your own thing, and if you do not think that 3D printing capability,
you could scan one you already had and you could take the lower from an AR you already had and scan it and just have that turned into a blueprint in CAD and then just print it.
And
with
that
a 3D
technology,
printer.
as we have seen over the last couple of years, is growing exponentially and is becoming more and more affordable. More and more softwares are being developed to make the design process easier so that kids can design cool stuff on the computer.
I took an AutoCAD class in high school. It's not that hard. Not to minimize that part of your job, but to learn to use AutoCAD is not that difficult, And so if all you're doing is just trying to print this thing, if that's all you're trying to learn, then it's not going to be that difficult to do.
And what are we talking about? The only part that you would necessarily have to print if you wanted to create a ghost gun would be the lower.
And there are, because someone will hit it in the comments. There are 80% lowers and stuff that you can buy in P80s handguns that you finish at your house and stuff. And those things you can do a lot. They're like project things, and people do it all the time.
Yeah, it's like a hobby for a lot of people.
Yeah, but again, even with those, they're only legal if you never sell it. And if you do sell it or something, you have to put a serial number on it. You have to register it. All these things are still held to federal standards unless you're going to keep it yourself and have it as a project, right? The idea that ghost guns, quote unquote, are more of an issue than illegal firearms on the street is a fucking joke to me.
That is a joke.
It is a joke
fraction
to me.
I would imagine.
It is more of a hassle. Last year, there was 90 guns stolen from that fucking Borner's gun store in Gorst, right? Dudes pulled the gate off the front door, filled a barrel with long guns and pistols, and then left. And they sold, at least 50 of them, I think, on the street before they finally got caught, right? Yep. The idea that it's harder to get one of those than to find somebody who's going to 3D print you a lower before you... That seems fucking ludicrous to me. That seems laughable. It seems like it is more of a struggle, more of a hassle to go through and find or purchase a P80 or something like that. Because when you build a handgun online, this is the third time that I've done this today, but when you buy one online, it's just this bottom part that you get. And so all the slide and shit, you still have to even if you buy it as a kit, this still costs like $500, $600
Yeah.
because all these things are still metal. They're still milled, machined pieces of metal that cost money. So
and the precision manufacturing that goes into something like that,
right, is not cheap.
Insane.
Yeah, but if it's not done correctly, it'll blow up in your hand.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so they like a full P80 kit still costs like $600. So it's not like it's cheap. You know, it's cheaper to buy a shitty gun off the street than it is to buy an 80% kit from somebody online that's going to require you to do an FFL before you get it. You know, so all of this again. This is the second time I'm going to hit it again at the end. Mm-hmm. All of these things are strictly done to restrict and hinder the rights of free people and law-abiding citizens to openly express their Second Amendment rights.
Yep.
And it is just increasingly disturbing to me. The more and more we go down the list, like none of these things. I think we've hit 3 things that were like, yeah, these could have the potential to this maybe. Might be a good idea. Let's get some more information. We might have a good idea here.
Yep.
So probably the 25th paragraph that
let's study all of these violent things. That's a good thing to take a look at. Let's make sure that we just put more money into background checks so that you don't have to get screwed waiting to fulfill your Second Amendment right. And I've drawn a blank on any other ones, but it is all this all speaks to, like, it sounds like we really want to make sure nobody's allowed to buy guns anymore, but we have this pesky constitutional amendment sitting right there next to the top that we can't quite get around.
We can't chip away at it.
It's just unbelievable. One paragraph in the Constitution, and we have probably tens of thousands of pages, if not hundreds of thousands of pages of gun legislation throughout this country now that has done everything in its power to get away from that simple paragraph in the Constitution.
If you wrote all of these into individual gun laws, they would be tens of thousands of pages just on this one webpage.
Just on the ones that he's talking about creating legislation for.
The next one is reform, fund, and empower the U.S. Justice Department to enforce our gun laws. Biden will direct his Attorney General to deliver him within the first 100 days a set of recommendations for restructuring the ATF and related Justice Department agencies to most effectively enforce our gun laws. Biden will then work to secure sufficient funds for the Justice Department to effectively enforce our existing gun laws, increase the frequency of inspections of firearm dealers, and repeal riders that get in the way of that work. Colin, let me ask you a real quick question. Who is it among the United States that enforces laws?
That would be law enforcement.
And those are the police officers.
That would be, your sheriffs, your state patrol,
So we're going to reform and increase and empower these people that we just said we were going to actively defund and take power away from.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
What I am getting out of this is that we're going to empower the federal arm of enforcement. So you're talking more and more ATF agents out there swinging what they do best, going around, just essentially creating a more federally aligned police force in a way that only really is focused on alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and explosives.
Oh, okay. So we're going to defund local police and increase state police.
Yeah, so we're going to,
Word. Federal, I mean state in like the larger term of the state. I mean.
And it would essentially.
Federal police.
Yeah, I mean, you're be boosting up a more federal style law enforcement
Isn't
system.
That what Democratic leadership and left-leaning people were upset about in Portland, that the feds had come in and were enforcing federal laws? Oh, okay.
Yep. That's a true statement.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was. That seems weird.
And how did they get around that? The lefty governor decided the only way she could do it if they used the State Patrol of Oregon, because the federal government could deputize them as federal law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
So at this point, then you're talking about stateies having even more power just on the federal side coming in to enforce this shit, or just more and more ATF agents out there.
Cool.
Yeah,
all about it. All right. Word. Well, if that it is, man. I know that I already hit on this point, but again, it is like shocking to me how quickly Joe Biden is slapping his base in the face.
Oh yeah.
He's like, do you remember all those things that I just talked about up in all of his voters,
Yeah.
right? Do you remember those things that I just talked about?
Yeah.
Leading all the way up until the election?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck all that. It's been right here on my website this whole time. Fuck all that.
This whole time.
Fuck all that. I got something, a whole new thing planned up for all y'all, and it's going to be sick. It's going to be sick. Okay, next one.
Oh, my God.
Tackle urban gun violence with targeted evidence-based community interventions. This is long.
This is so
okay.
back-ass.
Well, I think we talked about in the past. I mean, community level is where this is going to start. So this is a
community level.
long paragraph. Daily acts of gun violence in communities. Okay. Daily acts.
Tackle urban gun violence with targeted evidence-based community intervention. So,
Proven strategies for reducing gun violence in urban communities without turning to incarceration. For example, group violence intervention organizes community leaders to work with individuals most likely to commit acts of gun violence, express the community's demand that the gun violence stop, and connect individuals who may be likely perpetrators with social and economic support services that may deter violent behavior. These types of interventions have reduced homicide by as much as 60%. Okay, so I don't think that doing things on a community level is a bad thing, because the best way to help communities is to figure out what they need, because it's not going to be the same thing all across the country. We talked about that last week when we talked about Larry. So if there's...
What stops the street violence in Chicago will not be the same thing that stops street violence in Pittsburgh.
No, so I think that this, on the whole, is a good thing. To figure out why motherfuckers are getting killed all the time and try and put an end to that shit. Because...
And I like the idea of federal dollars just going to these types of programs that are always ill-funded.
Yes. And
Community outreach programs,
yeah.
after-school activities, boys and girls clubs, like all these things, extracurricular sports that are not school-based. I mean, these are the things that are proven to keep kids out of trouble.
Biden will create a $900 million 8-year incentive to fund these and other types of evidence-based interventions in 40 cities across the country. The 20 cities with the highest number of homicides and the 20 cities with the highest number of homicides per capita. This proposal is estimated to save more than 12,000 lives over an 8-year program. That doesn't sound like that many. Not that I'm like, why isn't there more? But in the scheme of how many people die every year from gun violence, that doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. I'm sorry. That was almost rude. But
almost rude to all those dead people.
Almost rude. But no, I don't. I think I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't.
No.
I think that.
I would question the validity of how they've already had 40 cities and across the country, 20 the cities with the highest numbers. Homicide and stuff like that.
How do some of those not overlap?
I feel like it should be more of like a, if you have a problem in your city, here is a program to get funding for your program.
Not just the 40 cities. Make an X amount of dollars available to cities that need it, and I agree with that, because there are definitely
to start your 501c3 corporation or business where you run after school programs or these.
What if you're 21
programs
on one of those lists? And you're like, man, we still got hella people dying here. Like, well, figure it out.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Yeah, and we're not, just to be fair, we're not like just looking for ways to poke holes in the Biden plan, right? Because like I said, this is not a bad thing. Doing things at a community level is the right way to figure out what is wrong in those communities. But it shouldn't be limited to just the 20 worst cities in America. No. We should be trying to fix America as a whole. So open up the access to everybody.
Anyone that needs it.
No, I think that's good. So the next point: dedicate
social program for the day.
Dedicate the brightest scientific minds to solving the gun violence public health epidemic.
Who's the brightest scientific mind? And why would we think that they have anything significant to input here? Elon Musk is a very bright scientific mind. I don't know if he can figure out. I don't think I would trust him to stop gun violence.
This says Biden will call for Congress to. This talks about stopping the funding for the CDC to study gun violence. Biden will call for Congress to appropriate $50 million to accelerate his research of the CDC and NIH.
We need to get off this horse where we decide it's an epidemic.
Federally, it's not an issue, right? This is an issue in different states for different reasons. The gun violence. God, I fucking hate even that term, right? But like you said, the gun violence that happens in Chicago is not the same as the gun violence that happens in Bremerton. You know? There are, or wherever the most amount of gun suicides happen, those two things are completely different. So to slap a federal Band-Aid on those things, I don't think is the way to go. I think these need to be community-based issues, and I don't know that $50 million to the CDC and the NIH is going to tell us why we have a problem with that in America.
No, because we're talking about the CDC here. The CDC, the Disease Control and Prevention, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Yeah.
Disease. I know we want to think of gun violence as an epidemic, and
Right.
it's a virus for this, our society. These are not the places to be fixing these things. Okay, I don't care. This stuff has got to stop. This whole whatever we want to classify it as an epidemic or whatever. I don't care
Right.
what language you slap on it. Do not put the virologists in charge of fucking gun violence policy.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people out there that are very specialized in this thing. Probably a lot of former law enforcement officers and homicide
Psychologists.
detectives. Yes, psychologists. I mean, all those people should be making up, if we're going to come up with some kind of, way to track all these statistics and all this stuff. And then let's get some actual statisticians in there. Let's get some Eric Weinsteins in there to make sure that the statistics we're looking at are telling us
legit.
the picture we think that we're seeing or not.
Right.
The CDC and the NIH is not the place to do this thing. We need to stop all this petty fucking nonsense about, just this seems like a real PC type of shit.
Yeah,
This is only this kind of stuff is going to happen in the 2020 era, if you will, and the build up to it.
Next point, prohibit the use of federal funds to arm or train educators to discharge firearms. We should be passing national gun laws, not requiring educators who already have too much on their plates to also protect the safety of their students. Biden supports barring states from using federal dollars to arm or train educators to discharge firearms. This is not something I agree with. We talked about this when it was first brought up. I don't think you should be forcing anybody to use a firearm because nobody who is uncomfortable should be touching a firearm.
No.
But if you have teachers who want to, I feel if you got a staff of 40 and 30 of them are like, hey, we're all collectively interested in learning to use firearms and like potentially, getting our concealed pistol licenses and like having them at school, I don't see any reason why you don't take advantage of federal dollars to do that. Also, if you have teachers who already have their concealed pistol licenses, who already carry to defend themselves, I don't have a problem with that person then carrying in school to do that. I don't personally have a problem with that. As a father, as somebody who is potentially going to send their kid to public school, if there are teachers there who have concealed pistol licenses, I don't necessarily have a problem with them carrying guns there. As long as they're on their person and not like on their table or they make shit that you like ones that you can slap on your desk and shit like that. I wouldn't be comfortable with that, but I would be fine with them carrying on their person. I would be fine with that.
Like a true concealed carry.
A true concealed carry on your person where no kid's going to see it because some kids are going to get freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
But as long as you're doing it in a way where no child will see it, if you're going to imprint, that's fine. You can't really do anything about that, but that's neither here nor there. But like I said, a true concealed carry or maybe even like a safe or something, like a lockbox on the desk where you have like the key
or something like that.
Yeah, where you have the key, on a thing on your wrist that like you don't fucking ever take off, or it's on like your name tag that you have to wear because most teachers have to wear name tags now. Like I would be okay with that type of discussion, but I don't see the sense in barring federal dollars from being used to educate educators on firearms if there's enough interest in it,
Okay. Because
where are you at with it?
I'm just thinking a little bit more realistically because I think that's a much more philosophical point that you're making because we're thinking of teachers as individuals and individuals acting on their own with their own, God-given rights and whatnot. But what we would really have to deal with would be teachers' unions. Like the union whatever teachers' union those teachers belong to would have to have a majority or whatever and then go through their union and blah, blah, blah. So I could see a lot of problems with implementation. But
if the money was even there, then being able to access it. Yeah.
Not to mention how much the union's going to gouge the taxpayer for a federally funded program like that. But
find the most expensive trainer in the area. Yeah.
And then that creates an entire market where you have specialty trainers that they specialize in teaching teachers how to use firearms, and their rates are 10 times more than if, say,
because
a group
it's
of friends
specialized
wanted to get together.
training. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
so I can
on
see
the whole,
the implementation issues with it, but yeah, on the whole, if it was there, I don't have any problem with teachers being able to access federal dollars to secure training if that's something that they're wanting to do.
The only reason I can kind of square that away because I don't disagree with them getting funding to do that from like if that's what the local school district decided to vote for and increase property
Right.
taxes for. But if we're just talking like the Department of Education's got to pay for some of that. I don't like the idea of the federal funding aspect of it. But again, in reality, that's probably the way it would have to be implemented, and I guess I could probably find a way to be on board with it.
I can understand
On
the
the
argument between like locally sourced and federally sourced. I'm fine with that.
That's one of those. Show me the bill. You draw it up. Let me see what you got.
No, and I think you're right, because I think that my thing is more of a general thing, that I don't have a problem with them on the whole them being able to do that, but I can see where the issue between federal and local dollars would come in.
It's so.
So I'll say, if need be,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with, you know what I'm saying? If you live in a super small community or something like that, we can't fucking swing it. We don't, even with an increase in property taxes, it won't be enough for this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem with them seeking a grant, you know,
and that's not even to address the actual problems with school funding, but because that's problematic.
And I would, just to cover my own ass, I would also, in the implementation of that, teachers carrying in school, especially if they were going to learn. You know what I'm saying? With federal dollars, I got.
Oh yeah,
I need like X amount of hours that you have to have trained before I feel comfortable with you doing this.
Right.
Like I don't. Yeah, and I would feel the
constant training throughout the year.
The same about people who already had their concealed pistol license, but I also feel more confident that person is shooting more regularly. Like I don't, you know.
And watch, if we implement this kind of program, and next thing you know, the teachers are going to have more training than the cops get at the range. They get more range time.
Yeah, but that's. All right, so the next one, let's see, address the epidemic of suicides by firearm. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier, right?
60%.
Biden believes any plan to address the gun violence epidemic must address suicides by firearms, which account for 6 in 10 gun-related deaths, but are often left out of the conversation. In the fucking beginning, 40,000 deaths. Some of those are suicides, which rarely get talked about. 60% of them are suicides. If 60% of the issue is people killing themselves, why is that not at least 60% of what the fuck we're talking about here? Instead, it's this one fucking thing down here. This very tail end, the last 3 paragraphs are about mental health, right? So let's, good Lord, supporting survivors of violence and their communities. So this is about supporting the survivors, make federal programs more trauma-informed. During his first 100 days, Biden will direct his cabinet to conduct a review of all federal programs that directly serve communities likely to experience gun violence and identify reforms to make sure those programs effectively address resulting trauma. Biden will then invest significant federal funds in expanding and improving the federal government's support for trauma-informed and culturally responsive care. Interesting. Create a network of trauma care centers. Train healthcare and other service to providers in trauma-centered care. Okay, the idea that suicide only comes from trauma reactive to other gun violence is fucking ludicrous to me.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Okay, so I don't know how many.
If we're talking about just like emotional trauma or, you know, just overall mental health trauma, I think that's awesome. I don't think it needs to be attached to anything that has to do with firearms at all. But, you know, because I'm pretty sure we all know at this point the true problem with gun violence is we have massive mental health issues in this country. Because that leads people to do really terrible things when they lose their fucking minds all the time. They get terribly depressed. They get hooked on insane fucking psychotropic drugs from their psychologists and their doctors. And it drives people absolutely insane, and they end up doing terrible, terrible things. I mean, how many of the mass shooters that we've had have not been on some form of anti-anxiety medication or some crazy shit like that? There's obviously a massive problem. And a lot of times that does manifest itself. You know, if it manifests itself in a violent way, a lot of times it happens with firearms. But approaching it from a firearms center point does not seem to make any sense to me at all.
So I agree.
Right? It just doesn't.
Especially because every one of these things, creating the network of trauma care centers, they all talk about violence. They're all talking about violence, including safety planning, crisis intervention, domestic violence, like the trauma care centers. That's what they're talking about. Rape crisis center, domestic violence program in universities, existing mental health care centers, trauma health care and other service provider and trauma care centers to prevent re-victimization and secondary trauma, Biden will align training efforts through relevant federal programs to increase a focus on understanding the trauma effects of violence, providing appropriate care to avoid furthering the trauma, linking survivors with evidence-based trauma therapies, and reducing myths about domestic and sexual violence. This will be accomplished through agency directives, policy guidances, and special conditions for grantees and contractors. All of this talks about violence in some type of way. Trauma resulting from some form of violence. That is not the only reason people kill themselves. It's not just because you got raped or because somebody you know got killed or because you got beaten. Those aren't the only reasons that people kill themselves.
It is if you are of the mind that something like words can be violence, because at that point, it's any kind of trauma you're dealing with.
Let me ask you, Colin.
Just knowing where their fundamentalist ideas come from.
Any type of violence.
Any type of violence.
Silence is violence, don't you know?
I forgot about that too. So yeah, you can go get some silent trauma.
So let me ask you this, right? If 60% of gun violence is suicides, but 43 of these 48 paragraphs have nothing to do with mental health in any capacity whatsoever. Okay, nope. So let's maybe the red flag ones. So we'll take 5 or 6 out of these, right? So we're talking about 37 of 48 paragraphs that don't reference mental health in any capacity at all.
Did you count those?
Yes.
Yes. Look at you. I love it.
48 paragraphs on this page that have to do with the Joe Biden gun policy, and 37 of them, conservatively, have nothing to do with mental health in any capacity, but they admit at the very bottom, the 4th to last paragraph, right, that suicide is 60% of gun violence in this country. 37 of 48 paragraphs on this page have to do with limiting the free expression of the Second Amendment for free and law-abiding individuals. But 60% of the issue is suicide. I feel like I hate this because I feel like I sound like a crazy gun nut, but what other conclusion is somebody who is a hardcore Second Amendment advocate or even a traditionalist Second Amendment advocate, what other conclusion are you supposed to draw from this when they're admitting that 60% of the issue is suicide? And I'm not sure what... Let's do a little...
calculator?
Yeah. What is it? Fucking 48 divided by 37 times 100? Is that how this is done? No?
Nope. What the answer are we looking for again? What percentage of what? I'll help you out
of these answers don't have anything to do with...
So 37 out of 45. So, yep.
77%. 77% of these have nothing to do with mental health in any capacity. Almost 80% have nothing to do with mental health in any capacity. 23% of these,
but the
have
majority,
to do with 60% of the issue.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, the majority of these gun violence situations are not being addressed in this problem. So you're only addressing the 40%.
23% of it.
23.
Liberally, yeah. 23% of it addresses 60% of the issue. Conservatively, 60% of the issue. You have got to be fucking joking me.
That's basic
there you
math
go,
right
Officer
there,
Brian.
Man.
There you go. I love you, Officer Brian. There's your answer.
You know what I really, really, really hate about this website, I might add, is that there's no scrolling bar on the side.
You just have to use your...
You got to use your mouse wheel, but since I got all these mics plugged in, I got a mouse, so I've been having to use the arrow key.
Well, that is just ultra frustrating.
Slightly.
23% of the Joe Biden gun policy addresses 60% of the issue.
And I will say,
that's going to be one of my favorite talking points.
There it is. 23% addresses 60% of the issue.
Do you know how I know? We did the fucking math live on my goddamn podcast. That's
Nailed
how I
it.
know.
Nailed it.
Motherfuckers, dude. That's so frustrating. Anyway.
So earlier I alluded to the fact that Biden really has no base, right? But
yeah.
The people that do vote for Biden, would imagine most of them would lovingly sign on to something like this. Because it sounds like you're trying to do a lot. Sounds like you're trying to do a lot here. There's a lot in here. If every single one of these things actually became, policy and became law, the Second Amendment is, you're talking well past Swiss cheese at this point. You got more holes than cheese left to that thing. But it wouldn't do what it set out to do.
It will not fix the problem.
Unless The only thing you actually set out to do is to curtail people's Second Amendment
Yes.
rights.
In which case, I would say it does a smashing
It's
job.
a fucking hole in one.
Smashing, Nigel.
Smashing Nigel.
Smashing. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
Come on.
that's a good gotcha.
It is a gotcha.
Yeah.
We're not live anymore, apparently, because the light went out. Boop. Now we're live. The tail of doom struck. It took us offline. Not really. Just the sign.
Dear Lord. that
Just
scared
the
shit
sign.
out of me. Okay. Okay. So do you want to talk about do you want to save student loan debt for the next episode?
Yeah, that's
We can end the year with student loan debt.
that'd be good.
Yeah, and we can see if there's going to be. So the reason we were going to talk about that because there has been whispers of one of the first executive orders, of the Biden administration being to absolve everyone of their federal student loan debt. And it's
And I've seen
important.
multiple numbers too.
Yeah, and it's important to really pay attention to that because the only way that the federal government can forgive people's student loans is to add that money to the national debt.
Yes.
There is nothing that anybody can do to pay off those student loans without adding the money to the student loan or to the national debt. There's, even as the president, you can't just forgive people's loans.
Nope.
You can't just forgive debt. It does not work that way. That's not how the world works. That's not how money works.
Nope.
It doesn't work that way. Somebody has to pay the dollars.
Somebody does.
Somebody has got to pay the dollars.
And in this particular circumstance,
It is
there,
you.
there is no ability for, say, the banks to file bankruptcy or any kind of loaning facility that loans out this money. There's no way for them to declare bankruptcy. There's no way for the recipient of the loan to declare bankruptcy, which is why that no matter which way you slice it, like you said, it comes out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Somebody
Period,
has to
full
pay.
stop.
Because the last time the banks didn't have any money, what happened, Colin?
It was not good.
Was 2008.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Pop.
And certainly
The Big Short.
the
It's
Biden
great.
administration can't let that happen again. So you can't just take all the money out of the circulation. It has to be paid off somehow. So, all of those, what do we call it, $8 trillion that we added to the deficit over the last year. What was the biggest number that you saw for student loan?
For student loans.
Yeah.
Overall, it's $1.6 trillion so that's nationally. If they got rid of every bit, but I've seen numbers
just
thrown
rounded up
around
to 10.
between offering to pay $50,000, anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000 to assist in your loan as part of the economic recovery for COVID. So they're going to try to push that as part of their first COVID recovery bill.
Bitch.
So that's
I feel like if you're
that's a thing. I mean, what's another 1.6? What was the Nancy Pelosi's House bill? It was like
1.8. Oh, the original one was.
Yeah.
The price tag on it was like 5 or 6.
Okay.
But when we talked about the amount of money that they were actually releasing, it was way more than that.
Yeah. So I wanted to say it came close to
10.
But either way, I mean, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars here.
Yes.
This is not something that, or I don't know. I'm so confused with the state of the economy at this point. Like, we have a really terrible economy right now. How is it that we can pump all of this money into, corporations and not have any kind of deleterious effect on inflation or the value of the dollar at all?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're keeping interest rates basically at zero so that nobody can make any money off of the whole thing and nobody's getting any interest or anything like that. But none of this makes any kind of sense in an Econ 101, sense.
Yeah.
Like, it really doesn't make sense that you can just print all of this money. But if money really doesn't matter anymore, then the government is free to just print out as much as they want and spend how many more they want. It doesn't really matter.
Right. This is, and what's what I have here is $1.5 trillion. But it's more than that. $2.2 trillion, up to $6 trillion in new spending for phase 3. So yeah.
So altogether,
6, 7.5.
Yeah,
so
that's
close
a
to
lot.
8 of because the PPP program ran out of money. So all of that up to 6 is gone.
Yeah.
All of the everything is gone.
It's all gone.
Um
It's all gone.
So Yeah, so it's close to collectively $8 trillion that's been added to the deficit just in
In the last stimulus.
in stimulus packages.
Yeah. That's, I don't know.
And
if
the
you call it
1.5,
stimulus or a lifeline.
the 1.5 is when the Fed just injected that $1.5 trillion into the economy to try and stimulate it, and there was like the bump, and then it fell right back down. So that's what the 1.5 is. But
it doesn't make any sense.
plus 1.9 trillion for student loans, plus whatever 1.8 was the last price tag for the current stimulus, for the last stimulus package. But then Nancy Pelosi said that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So probably close to 3 or 4. For the following. So plus student loans, $6.9 trillion additionally. That's what I'm going to guess.
And depending on how those Georgia Senate races go, they might just be able to walk it right through.
6.9 trillion. That's what I think. That's what I think the total price tag of the next stimulus package is going to be once Biden's in office. I'm calling it now. 6.9 trillion. That's what I think. What do you think, Colin?
I mean, does it matter?
Just guess for the sake of the show.
Let's do. I'm gonna do 8.3.
8.3 trillion. All right. That is the most absurd amount of money,
isn't it?
Anyone could possibly conceive of.
That's the wonderful thing about this.
You
can't even conceive of what
that
looks like.
No one can.
Does.
I'm not even going to ask because I know that none of us and nobody listening could possibly conceive of $8.3 trillion. No one. It's impossible.
Yeah.
As human beings, you can't even conceive of that much. None of us.
Jeff Bezos could not conceive of how much money that is.
Nope.
So, did you see that Elon Musk bumped out Bill Gates for the number 2 spot? The richest guy ever.
I'm out here. See my kid's weird ass name? I got hella money. Sending motherfuckers to space.
Bro.
Dragging capsules and shit.
So dope.
Satellites and whatnot.
Watching all those live streams, it is the greatest thing to realize that we live in the future like this. And we're just, every day. It seems like there's a new fucking rocket going up now. It is
I'll never
the
forget
dopest thing.
When... I don't remember what launch it was happening. They must have been preparing for the big launch, and my mom was telling me like she wasn't comfortable with a private company like sending people into space. And I was like, Mom, do you know that SpaceX has never fucking killed anybody in space? Do you know NASA's killed like several people testing rockets and shit? Like many people have died because of NASA. SpaceX has not killed anybody yet.
Yeah. Not to mention, SpaceX does this really cool thing where like in the old school days, NASA would like launch up the rocket, right, and then it would separate. And then it would just like hang out in space or fall back down,
blow up,
and do all this crazy shit. No, nowadays it goes up, it detaches, and then it goes and lands
itself.
They
use it like 10 times or some shit before they have to get rid of it. Like what?
Dude. And it's not even get rid of it; they just service it. I mean, I saw the number the other day of
it's too much.
One of them I think has got like 20-some flights in it already. It's so awesome.
Just jamming away.
Awesome. Yeah, all you got to do is get the fundamentals right, and there's nothing says you can't just keep launching those things, bro.
That's so sick.
So insane. And the actual the Starship has a
Dragon.
Yeah. Well, no.
The actual
Starship
that
he's doing. It's got its hop test coming up real soon.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the one where I think they go up to 50 meters or some shit like that, and then it goes over and then it lands. I am so irrationally excited for this
thing. The spacecraft take me to Mars, Elon. I'm just kidding. I want to wait a while. I don't want to go. I don't want to be the first.
I'm not going to hang out there first. I'll go once it's set up, bro. Once it's legit,
established.
Sign me the fuck up right now.
SOS live from Mars. That would be legit.
And he was asked like, what would the laws or whatever be like? Would you adhere to U.S. laws or something on Mars? He goes, no. We will not be bound by earthly laws.
Mars, bitch.
I want to see what kind of government Elon sets up on Mars.
Elon law.
That's going to be the fun part about this
Elon.
whole thing.
So they're calling it Elon. Here we follow the Elon. Okay. So let's talk about the Kraken real quick.
Let's talk about the Kraken.
Quick, and then we'll do our hill to die on.
Should show you how big the Kraken is.
Whoa.
It'll be that quick.
Next episode is episode 99.
Yes.
That will be our final episode for the year, and we will talk about student loan debt pitches and whether or not that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to do the show in my Christmas onesie.
Deal. Maybe I'll think of something cool to wear. Maybe I'll find a new sweater. Find a new Christmas sweater. I got to get new sweaters. My chest is too big now for all the sweaters that I have, like all the cardigans and shit.
You're too
I
jacked.
got too swole.
Bro, my brother sent me this picture the other day. He's never had an ugly Christmas sweater before, but he found one of the Gadsden flag. And
what?
yeah. So I was like, dude, you need to be
sick.
buying that for your first ugly Christmas
Hell
sweater.
yeah. I need a duck sweater. I need a duck's ugly Christmas sweater is what I need. I've like outgrown most of my jerseys too.
Ooh.
I bought a large jersey last year, and it was like on the cusp because I'm more of an extra large, but it was a jersey, so it was okay. Way too small now. My chest is too big. I can't fit in it. It's swole. It's Dax's jersey now. I'll keep it for years. It's that candy green one. The fucking coolest one. Yeah. I can't fit anymore. I'm too big. Chest too big. Chest too swole.
Chest too swole.
Anyway.
That's highly upsetting, dude.
Talk about the Kraken. So Sydney Powell has been talking for probably like 10 days, 2 weeks now about releasing the Kraken, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of just, pretty salacious allegations just thrown out there.
The biggest one being supposedly sworn testimony about Dominion voting machines, right?
Yes.
And Dominion voting machines are the one in Michigan that 6,000 votes were swapped over, and they're used in like 43 counties in Michigan and 20-something states, and like it's a whole deal, right? We talked about it with Larry last episode. Huge concern. That's obviously concern because if it happened one place, it could potentially happen other places.
Yeah.
But
and on top of that, the air of illegitimacy that it gives any election at that point, that's unacceptable.
I believe we also talked about that there were senators, Blumenthal and somebody else, who were actively writing letters about how this could happen and that we probably shouldn't be using Dominion voting machines
years
anymore.
ago.
And for some reason, we still fucking did it. So that's really weird. So what we have specifically she said a lot of stuff, right? There's like a 10-minute video or so that's been going around. I sent it to you, I think, but that's like...
Including alleging that multiple candidates have paid Dominion, both from the Republican and Democratic side.
So
for votes.
Essentially, what she said in this 10-minute video, right, is that allegedly, Dominion voting software years and years ago worked and was funded by Hugo Chavez, who used to be the president of Venezuela.
Yes,
correct?
And this is 2 company iterations before they were Dominion,
yes,
if I recall.
Yes, and so I'm just going to call it Dominion for ease of communication. Yeah. But it is they've changed names, they've developed, things have happened since then. But this just for ease,
which is also
communication, right?
Not out of the ordinary for a big, an international company.
And like I said, she talked for like 10 minutes, so there was a lot of information. Like afterwards. Mainstream reporters talking all kinds of shit at her. She's going on about communists and Hugo Chavez. He's fucking dead. Venezuela, South America, all this shit. Doesn't even make any sense. We're talking about American elections. Just 2020. It's a long line, but if you just hold on, right? Okay. So she's talking about how Dominion voting software, before it was Dominion, was funded and worked with Hugo Chavez to be the voting software they could use in Venezuela and then eventually in South America and other dictatorial countries, so they could design it so that the leaders of the countries could adjust the votes in the software after the votes had already happened. And not only vote it, but like delete evidence that they were ever in the machines. And all of this salacious stuff that you could hack an election, change it, and make it look like it never happened. Yeah. Right?
Specifically because the code is so simplistic, it allows...
Yes.
It essentially allows you to take a USB drive with a little bit of line code on it, plug it into it, run a program, and have it change something and have no memory of you ever changing it.
I saw somewhere, I don't remember where, but a PBS did a documentary 2 years ago about these very machines, and they had just a regular guy who went and bought a voting machine, hacked the fuck out of it, and was like, this is what we're using.
Yep.
And nothing happened. It's the same goddamn machines that we used in the last election. And for some reason, we're supposed to believe the line of like, no, there is zero evidence of any potential widespread voter fraud or any fucking thing like that.
Nope.
Even though we've had scientists, senators, all kinds of officials come out and say that there's serious concern over Dominion voting machines. There's no problem here. No worry. Not even any type, no evidence. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's illogical. It's counter to logic. It's completely reversed because they've already said it. It's gaslighting to the highest degree.
They have started investigations on it before in the past.
Yep.
How is that alone not evidence enough to merit an investigation? That's all I'm at. I'm like, I'm
Right.
not willing to stand on one side of this fence. I'm going to stand on top of the fence.
It's a problem
going,
for everyone.
Just look into it.
Yeah.
Look into it. It seems if there is one case of it, that's too much. Look into it.
Especially
I need answers.
because
we all
Sydney
need
Powell
answers.
is saying that it's not just the Democrats that have done it. The
Yeah.
Republicans have taken advantage too. It's a big deal now because she works for President Trump, so that's the focus. But she said in this 10-minute press conference, right? She said in here that it's not just Democrats, right? She talked specifically about Hugo Chavez and communists because the Democrats are going to the left, and so she's like spinning a web of a story of this transcends decades of communism and socialism, and that's why this is happening, and that's why the left is doing this because they're socialist and they hate President Trump. So she's not crazy talking about shit that happened decades ago. It's just a long story of why this is happening now and who is using it and why they're using it, and so she's making it as like. Everybody's using it now, but it's a tool of the left.
Yes.
And so that's like kind of why that's happening the way that it's happening. And the easiest way to do that and make it appeal to everybody is to scare people now who are seeing it happening now and they're like, holy shit. And then also to scare older people who were alive and watched Hugo Chavez destroy Venezuela and fuck over South America and everywhere. And so you're getting, you're bringing in everybody when you extend the timeline out that many years.
Which is a really unfortunate way of trying to prove her point, in my mind.
Yes.
It turns so many people off because I understand what she tried to do, but it's kind of like, I mean, I want to say, like, are her and Trump related? Because the way they try to put their point across are equally as terrible, in my mind.
Yeah.
And with somebody like Powell, it really disturbed me because I heard when she first came on the scene, I heard like really good things about her and like her track record and all that.
She wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't something to it.
Right.
Like well-respected lawyers saying that type of shit.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
And then so she made all those statements and then nothing really happened, and then she did finally file court proceedings last week.
Yeah, on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, it was right before the holiday.
And nothing has come out publicly yet, I don't think. But so we'll see what happens. I would imagine it's only a matter of time until something gets, FOIA released or whatever the fuck, however that happens. Has to be unsealed, I think, by the courts. But I would imagine it's only a matter of time until that happens. But whether or not...
the only people that are going to try to make those requests and look into that are going to be, alt media sources that are going to
Crowder
be ridiculed
will get it
in the mainstream.
And the shame of it is that it, for whatever reason, it took so long. Now we have states that the results are being certified. It's happening more and more and more all the time. We talked about this with Larry last time. That you only have so much time. And
if you want to,
it's creeping into December, in which the delegates or the electors and shit are going to be selected. So time is running out.
Yeah. Which some people say is still a strategy. I saw a metric the other day that Trump had lost 36 out of 38 of his court filings thus far, and some people are trying to insinuate that essentially is it was a strategy. We're talking 4D chess again, that the Trump campaign was doing, so that essentially it just makes them look like a mockery until like they're really ready at the very last minute, and they'll drop the hot mic, and then the Democrats don't have any time to respond at that point because it's too late. And all they've been doing is making a mockery of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that.
I don't either, and there's only time will prove whether or not that's crazy or not.
Yeah, and just to be clear for everybody, we're not like sitting here like, man, I hope there's a way that Donald Trump really wins this election. But I am hoping, for the sake of the integrity of the election, that there is something to this, so that it wasn't like a whole much ado about nothing. Because if that does happen, then in the future, if there is a real legitimate issue with the voting systems, nobody's going to give a shit. Because the last time this came up, Sydney Powell went on and on and on for weeks, and then the Kraken came out, and it was really just a fucking guppy or whatever they're going to say. Because it's going to be some type of, media talking point of the Kraken was really a fucking whatever.
Oh, the Kraken.
The Kraken was really a piece of calamari,
It's
it's right here. That's somebody else. I bet If nothing comes of the Kraken, at least one media pundit says the Kraken has been turned to calamari.
You called it, bro.
So
You
I'm
called
calling it here: 6.9 trillion and the Kraken and calamari.
Oh,
That's what
man.
I'm calling today. So,
Oh my god.
so I find it interesting. There is definitely something to this, or there appears to be something to this. Well, there definitely is because people have been talking about it for years.
Yes.
So there's definitely something to it. We've seen a PBS documentary of fucking somebody hacking the machine. So it's definitely a thing. We probably shouldn't be voting on this software.
No.
Probably shouldn't be using the machines anymore.
Probably shouldn't be voting on software.
Yeah, it's concerning. I understand it's 2020, but the electronics thing is not. I don't know.
It's not
Like,
required.
there's a secure way to do it, but not like independent machines. I don't know. I feel
man.
like there's a way to securely vote from your phone, but I don't think machines with a bunch of steps in between is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Maybe I sound like an idiot. I'm not a techie. I don't know. I barely know how to use a computer.
You
But
know, the one thing that would truly give people faith in elections, regardless of which method you implemented,
if we did it on Twitter,
transparency.
oh yeah,
If everybody knew exactly
live
what it was
updates
like,
would be cool.
if you could log on to a website and go to your local precinct where they're counting votes, and you have a fucking nice zoomed in shot of that person looking there, and you can go,
Yes.
you know,
Oh
like
yeah.
fucking parency for 2020. Transparency levels that are adequate enough to satisfy our craved transparently desire in 2020.
Well, we saw that in some states, so there's no reason that you don't have
No,
live feeds just going.
No,
you
it's just
know,
because
of like
the way the legal bureaucracy works around those things, like you have to have laws passed to do that. And most
just
of the
let
time,
us watch, bitch.
you know, like that case in Pennsylvania that the state a state judge just upheld a desire to get a what do you call it? A stay on the confirmation of votes in the Pennsylvania election because you know somebody cried foul against a law that was on the books that was unconstitutional because a lot of these laws require constitutional amendments. That's the point I was trying to get to. So
Yeah.
like it's hard to change these things and get them up to speed with today's like requirements. And
Explain what
you
they
know,
did wrong.
Explain what they did wrong.
Yes.
Down in Pennsylvania. So I believe it was called Act 77. It was passed in by the Republican state legislature, the Republican majority state legislature there. And it's essentially a change to the voting laws in the state that allow for mail-in voting, and which seems fine on its face, and you can pass it into law and all this good stuff. But at the end of the day, it takes a constitutional amendment to change a voting law, generally speaking, in most states, and I believe in Pennsylvania, that is indeed the case. And specifically, this current lawsuit is trying to essentially get the electors their power back. They want the power to nominate electors in this state to revert back to the legislature as per the Constitution. And in this particular case, it appears as though some laws were passed in this Act 77 that essentially stripped the state legislatures from their ability to pick electors, the people that actually go to the college and vote, in place of the Secretary of State's personnel. So the Secretary of State on the state level are usually the state office that handles all election processes and all this good stuff. And so they're trying to say in Pennsylvania that they, due to a exorbitant anecdotal cases of voter irregularities and possible fraud, they want these state electors to be, they want their power back to actually choose their electors back to the state legislature. And it just got filed, I believe, Friday after the holiday. And I'm not sure exactly if that's the same exact, bill and lawsuit that the Republican member Sean Parnell, I believe his name, Sean Parnell or Chris Parnell, I can't remember his name. He was on Timcast the other day talking about it. And I'm not sure that's what the lawsuit is that he's involved in, but it sure sounded like it. So I'm curious if they got that. So they're idiots.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's it's one of those, and that potentially, depending on how that goes and what the court's remedy to that situation is.
The Kraken.
Pennsylvania. Because
the Kraken. What the fuck, over? Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
That's what they're trying to deal with in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the
lawsuit.
The lawsuit, constitutional amendment, essentially making it impossible to, to do
Idiots.
mail-in voting. So,
you can't fuck with the election without passing a law.
That's right. And most of the time that law requires a constitutional amendment. And it appears as though the Republican legislature of Pennsylvania started the process to work towards a constitutional amendment, ended up dropping that process at some point and just passing the law anyways. And some are concerned that the reason they did that is because they knew it would be unconstitutional, so they passed it anyways, and to see if anybody would challenge it in the courts.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the real problem there is that if that is indeed the case and they win that case, how many other states out there might fall subject to that kind of precedent where changes were made to the voting laws without a amendment to the Constitution, which, was required.
Would love to see some form of audit on state laws about, like, this is not constitutional. Like, it may have passed your state constitution, but this is not up to snuff federally, bitch.
Yep. Because there are times, sometimes
shit that infringes on rights that are instilled in the Constitution already, that even though it may be up to states' rights, this law that you've passed is unconstitutional.
Indeed. There's a lot of those laws inevitably on the books at some point.
But mad gun laws.
Yeah.
There's mad gun laws that are unconstitutional.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, most of them. But who knows?
That's
again, all this stuff will come down to...
Yes, we'll see what happens with the Kraken.
Yeah.
Like I said, it'll all come down to Sydney Powell and whatever rolls out with
TikTok,
the Kraken.
TikTok.
Certainly it's possible that whatever happens in Pennsylvania sets a precedent for the rest of the country, and we'll have to see. There's a lot of shit happening as far as, like shutdown orders and stuff that are coming out as unconstitutional. And well, now we just saw, like we said, that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the religious groups in New York. So I imagine there'll be a lot of lawsuits around the country regarding religious groups and churches and stuff like that. People being arrested for holding outdoor congregations and shit.
As well, there should be.
Yeah.
There should be.
I imagine there'll be a wave of that. The Bible wave, I'll call it.
Yeah. Not to say that taking mitigation steps is wrong, but mandating on high that mitigation, steps are required is not
discriminating against religious groups because of the way that they choose to conduct their faith. The most hilarious thing that I saw about that is somebody who quote tweeted an article about it and said, "Oh, so I guess the separation of church and state means nothing anymore." Wait, what?
What? Pause button?
Do you mean through this Supreme Court decision in which they ratify the separation of church and state? I'm sorry, what the fuck are you talking about?
I don't get it.
Yeah, the ideology of the far left makes no sense anymore.
No, it really does not, my friend.
Anything that rules in favor of the right, that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid.
That's stupid.
Hilarious. Okay, so do you want to do Hills to Die On?
What's your hill, baby?
All right.
Are you dying today?
The first one.
First
one? No, I meant like of the two of us.
Okay.
Our country is stronger than Donald Trump.
Yes, it is.
Right? One of the big things that I've seen over the last few weeks is, Donald Trump still hasn't conceded this election. And it was 16 days before Joe Biden had full access to everything going on in the White House. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but Joe Biden made up a fake office of the president-elect that he's been running around pretending to be since Election Day. The office of the president-elect doesn't exist. That's not a thing.
It's not a
That's
thing.
just a backdrop that they fucking made up to make it look more official so they can try and take more stabs at Donald Trump on his way out.
Yep.
Hilarious. The idea that Donald Trump is required, not that it wouldn't be out of the ordinary, right? But the idea that Donald Trump is required to concede the election in order for the next person to become the president is not only wrong, it's fucking laughable.
It is.
That's stupid. You only
not
get
make
4
sense.
years. That's it. He doesn't decide whether or not he's president. He did not inaugurate himself. He did not swear himself in. That's not how this works. You get 4 years. We pick the next guy. We're swearing him in, and you're done.
You're done.
We talked about this when Larry was here. There's a bunch of dudes that look just like Larry, who they may not like it. Their job is to go and peacefully walk Donald Trump out of the goddamn Oval Office if he overstays his welcome. That's what their job is. I bet there's at least 8 dudes who are being briefed and trained on that right now as a contingency.
I wonder what the policy number is to that.
I have no idea, but I'm sure that with just the way that the military works, there is at least a small group of dudes who are being trained to potentially peacefully remove President Trump and his cabinet from the White House in the extremely unlikely event that he refuses to concede the election or refuses to vacate the office after the inauguration.
And they're not going to take him out the back door.
No.
They're going to take him down the escape tunnel.
We're walking it. Yeah.
They're not going to see it.
So
if it happened, I'd pay to see that.
And those are just examples for right now, right? But things we've seen in the past that show this country is stronger than Donald Trump. The two Supreme Court justices, the two first that he put into place, have ruled against him on numerous cases. Many judges that he's put in that he's placed have ruled against him in many different cases. His administration leaked like a goddamn sieve.
Oh yeah.
It was on a near daily basis. Things were being leaked and released, stories being written. Somebody with close, knowledge of the situation in the White House has said this and this and this on a near daily basis. The FBI, come on, dog. I'm not even gonna go into like the Russiagate, like all of this shit, but like the FBI, Crossfire Hurricane, all of this nonsense that happened, it's
nonsense.
Seems laughable to me that he is being hoisted up and put on this pedestal as a monolith of like he just has a stranglehold on the country, and what are we gonna do if he chooses not to leave? The Army's gonna take him. They're gonna go. It's probably gonna be the Secret Service. They're gonna be like, we don't work for you anymore. You gotta go. I appreciate that you're the president. You're gonna be a president forever. But you gotta go. So the idea that
like how presidents get like a B squad security detail for the rest of their lives.
Yes,
like they get the B squad guys to come in there. That's their first
Your
job.
First
is to
assignment is to take Donald Trump to Trump Tower in New York. Get this guy out of here. Yeah. So for anybody who's freaking out or whatever, I don't understand why you're allowing somebody that you'll never meet to live rent free in your dome piece like that, but everybody with Trump derangement syndrome that is constantly thinking about the way that he is negatively affecting the country, I'd love to see it at the end of this 4 years, because it's going to be a goddamn roller coaster.
Dude.
It's just let it go. The country is over 200 years old. It's over 300 years old.
It'll be all
right.
Got
it? It's almost 300 years old.
Yeah.
We got it.
We got it.
Be okay.
It'll be all right.
Donald Trump isn't going to do it. Donald
founders,
Trump isn't the one.
Yeah.
He's not the guy.
He's not the guy.
He's not the guy. I don't know who the guy is, but it's not Donald Trump. He's not the guy. He is not the guy that's going to take down the country.
No, it'll be Kamala Harris.
It'll be Kamala Harris, he says. It's not the guy.
That's my bet. 2 years into it.
So that's me. That's where I'm at this week. The country is
hill.
stronger than Donald Trump.
I like it.
What's your hill to die on?
My hill to die on right now feels like it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller every day. Because what this is, it's a rising tide of the return of, the swamp. The swamp is coming back.
Word.
The corporate Democrats are looking like, at this point, I'm operating off the assumption that Biden will win, and it will be finalized, and he will become president.
That's how we've been running, yeah.
And as of right now, we're bringing in all the old corrupt cronies that have been around forever and a day, and it's just, our quote-unquote return to normalcy. The swamp is rising, and my hill is getting smaller and smaller, because there's still a lot of positions to fill on this cabinet, and I have a feeling that it's only going to go downhill from here. And that is, it's more soul-crushing than anything else when I really think about it. Like, I wanted to be angry at this stuff, because the minute, I thought maybe he'd be throwing in a whole bunch of radicals and stuff like that. And you can argue a lot of these people probably are. And stuff,
I was scared.
But we're not there yet, man. There's Department of Defense, Secretary of Treasury, Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Education. Like, all these massively powerful heads of state, essentially, unelected bureaucrats that do and have done nothing with their lives more than suck up to fucking politicians who give them sweet-ass jobs. We're going back to that. Biden, Wall Street candidate, Goldman Sachs candidate. I mean, we're back to corporate cronyism again, thanks to the Democrats. And I just can't. This should not be happening. Trump was controlled chaos. We kind of knew what it was. The dude was a psycho. We knew it, and we dealt with it. And we, and we got some decent things on the back end. this is only going to breed more and more deep corruption. More and more people are going to get rich. The rich people are going to continue to get richer while everyone else in the middle class just is systematically destroyed by lockdowns. And it's terrifying and it's depressing. But I'm just going to sit here, and I told you before the cast, we're going to do, if Biden gets the job, we're going to call balls and strikes. I don't see a whole lot of...
Like we've been doing for 3 years now.
Yes. Our love-hate relationship with Donald Trump, I think, is one that
I
stands.
told you, Kyle told me long ago that he was listening to the podcast, and he heard me say, God damn it, I hope a Democrat wins so we can talk shit about him too. And I don't know that this is what I thought was going to happen when I said that.
Right.
But I am glad that we're going to have a Democrat so that we can shit on his decisions for the next 4 years.
We can prove that we're not Republican shills.
Unbiased, baby. The most unbiased podcast around.
That's right. You just get our own biases, which generally tend to be just against...
We're pretty open about it.
Corruption.
We're pretty open about it, though.
Yeah,
It's no secret here.
I like this book. I like the document. I like the documents in and around it that give it context. I like true Judeo-Christian values that our country was founded on, and I like the general philosophy that you just leave everybody the fuck alone and let us all do our thing, and we'll probably make a pretty good go of it.
To the point of your hill to die on, we talked maybe earlier, maybe in the pre-show, about the Secretary of Defense. The last two people in line for the Secretary of Defense. I don't remember what their names are. We can look them up. Not you. You can if you want, but
we'll do a cursory Google.
They are both, to my understanding, actively working for defense contractors, and excuse me, when one of them gets the job, they are not, required to disclose publicly or privately which defense contractors they worked for, and they'll then be in control of our entire defense budget of over $700 billion and be able to give that money to whoever they want. And so it's obviously very easy to deduce that they may very well just give, enormous amounts of money to the company that they just worked for since the last time that they were in government.
Michelle Flourney, CEO of West X Advisors, former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. God, fucking internet.
She works for a defense contractor.
Yep.
And she's the Secretary of Defense?
She's one of the candidates.
Yep.
And then back to the top. Yeah, she's right. They got a whole piece on her.
She works for a defense contractor.
Yep.
And now, so that's
which
disclosed,
makes sense,
right? Okay,
because she's already in the defense industry, right? She's an expert.
She used to work in the Defense Department, and then she worked for a defense contractor. Now works for a defense contractor.
Yep.
And now she's going to be Secretary of Defense. That doesn't make any sense. And not in a way of like career. Obviously, she has experience
financially.
Quote unquote experience in the defense industry, right? Because she's dealt with this money and done whatever. But again, the fact that she's now going to leave, like you said, the swamp and jump straight back into the private sector or the public sector and work for the government, and then jump presumably back into the private sector and work for another defense contractor, probably that same one, if not somebody else that she hooked up fucking fatty style in that office. Why is this something that we're okay with? Why is it something that we're going to accept from somebody who ran on Donald Trump is so corrupt? Look at all this corruption that's happening. Corrupt. But I'm going to grab a bunch of people who are lobbyists and who are working for the, these particular individual industries and just bring them back in. People who worked for other administrations, even though I've run on, we need new voices. We need new ideas, new people, the young people. That's who's going to win. That's the future. But
not with Biden in office.
So that's a good one.
What you get.
That's a good one.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. I want to be angry, but I don't even have enough
fools,
to
bro.
Be angry about it. It's just
I would feel like a fool.
Fucking asked for.
If I voted for Joe Biden, I would feel like a fool.
The number of, and I don't know how reliable the number is or how high it is, but they say the number of what do they call those? Top there's a term for it, where you just vote on your ballot for the president and that's it, and you leave the rest of it blank.
Yeah.
The number of those Joe Biden got is fucking astronomical. Like in certain states, I think it was probably in Pennsylvania as part of that lawsuit and shit they're talking about. For the last like 3 or 4 elections, you've had anywhere between like, oh no, that's the permanently confined individuals or something like that. You're getting a lot of these sus ballots coming in where like people are voting just for Biden and no one else down ticket, which saying those are totally 100% legitimate. Those people did not vote in good conscience. You're going out there just to vote against somebody and leave.
Right.
That is not a responsible manner to vote. I mean, far be it from me to say that you can't vote that way. That's fine. I think it's funny that I did everything
dangerous.
but that. I voted for everything except for the top of the ticket.
You were only a down ballot voter.
But how many votes out there would you venture to just random guess? Like,
oh my God,
we're just done out of spite. No, they didn't want Biden, but they fucking hate Trump. Get him out of there.
I'm gonna say at least 10 million.
Right.
At least 10 million people.
That's just not healthy.
Who couldn't vote for Donald Trump.
That's just not
However
healthy.
many people collectively voted for Joe Jorgensen, that's how many times 2.
Yeah, times 2.
Because I bet there was at least that many who voted for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But a bunch of them were like, I can't do it. I can't do either of them. I'm going third party.
Going third party, baby.
I want to know how many people just didn't vote for president. That's what I want to know. I want to know how many people left the top of the ticket blank like you did.
How many people like me out there? There's one. There's
That's
2 in this room.
That's what I want to know. If you reach out to me privately, if you feel comfortable, but if you're watching this right now and you chose not to vote for president because you just couldn't vote for either of those candidates, let me know because I'm super interested. I think that's very interesting. I went Joe Jorgensen. I talked about it here. I was hoping there was some. She got 1% in a couple of places.
That's right.
I'm like, that's what's up.
I think I saw 1.7 in one.
Yep. I told you she wasn't the one. She's not the guy. Just like Trump isn't the guy. But I like the idea that
you feel better that way.
The cause of libertarianism is growing a little bit. The idea of a third party, the potential for a parliamentary style system,
is that parliamentary
growing slowly.
system.
I really think that's the key.
Yeah.
I really think that's the way to do it.
You want to know the problem with we'll save this for next week, but I told you before that there's a problem with the ideology of freedom and liberty. Is that it always breeds a counterforce, and that's totalitarian authoritarianism.
Yeah.
So it, begs the question: as long as freedom exists, there's always going to be a cause and a need to fight for it.
Guns,
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
So, sports! We're out here. So, that's the end of the serious stuff for this week. Yeah, so next week, or next episode, we will talk about the student loan debt. I think that's the only thing we didn't hit this week. That's fucking pretty good.
Yeah. Boom.
Out here. Pretty good.
This is why we gave one topic that we knew we were going to hit.
Yes. Yeah.
That was healthy.
Well, in the gun one,
it was a lot.
Took a while, but that's the type of shit that like Larry was talking about last week.
Yep.
That clip that Jordan. We should really turn that into a little, not to add more things to your plate, but that's just
We're
a good
back to
review
now.
thing for us to have what Larry said last week about the way that we do
shorts.
Shit. Yeah, exactly. That's a good
Shorts.
short to have.
And if any of you guys out there that are listening, if you feel like you're listening to the podcast on Monday and you want something to become a short so that you can be the cool guy at work that shows your friends like a little 15-minute clip of whatever it is that we're talking about,
let us know.
Let me know.
Yeah.
And we will make that happen.
If you want a particular short to be made, yes, you can send it. Absolutely let us know. Some people don't even like looking through. The timestamp I thought would like deal with a lot of those issues of like, no, just go directly to what you want. But some people are still fucking little pussies about that.
Unfortunately, people tend to be lazy creatures. And
I guess that was offensive. That's
Nothing better than talking shit about the audience, huh,
buddy? Terrible. Okay, so sports this week. This is week 12 or week 11.
Yeah, and
or week 12
up against the
our
Jimmy
fantasy
Jam
league. Yeah, it's week 12 this week, and then week 13 next week, and then we're into the playoffs. Right? League of $700. This week I play Morgan, and the next week I play Casey.
Ooh, that's a tough lineup.
It is a super tough matchup. Morgan is protected me by 30 points this week. I had a late Adam Thielen dropped out. He caught the COVIDs, so Adam Thielen is out.
Bro.
I do have Chris Carson back, Zeke Elliott got 32 yards and a fumble, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Chris Carson
one catch.
just came back.
Chris Carson just came back. He's been out for 3 weeks. It's been a real bitch.
Ooh.
But let's see, the last couple weeks, I've won the last 3 weeks without him.
Oh, yeah.
So I beat Shad, and then I beat Officer Brian, and then, oh my God, I beat Jordan Almodovar by 0.26 points.
I
saw that. 0.26 points.
What the?
I had just my kicker left. Just my fucking kicker, right? And
his defense
was
left.
It
I
was
like, I
oh,
saw
it
the
was
defense, and it was like the standard 10-point projection or whatever.
No, it was actually it was his kicker
that
was going. It was his kicker, and I needed him to get 7 points or less.
Yep.
And Tom Brady's driving down the field because as Ryan Suck up the Tampa Bay kicker, Tom Brady's driving down the field last drive, and I'm like, okay, if he kicks an extra point, like I'm boned. He literally has to miss this kick or else I won't win. Driving down the field, throws a goddamn interception.
Woo!
And the fucking and that's it. The Rams won the game, and so there was no opportunity. 0.26 points I won by. I am now currently sitting at 8-3. Balling out here. So we have the playoffs that start in the next few weeks. If the playoffs started today, Joe would be playing Cody, Morgan would be playing Casey, Jordan Almodovar would be playing you, and I would be playing Lacey. So those are super tough matchups. I'm in the 2 seed right now. Cody is the only one who has a better record than me at 9-2.
Hot dog.
Yeah, you're looking pretty good though, 7-4. You did way better this year than you did last year.
It's
way better this year.
I'm getting into like some seriously home stretch problems. Quarterback and backup quarterback are out right now. Breeze is out IR, which is massive.
Bro, fractured ribs. This guy, like multiple fractured ribs and a punctured lung. That's what Drew Brees has.
He's too old, bro. He's got to go.
He is getting old. Him and Tom Brady
fragile.
are in this race of like who has the most touchdowns all time, and they keep going back and forth when they throw more touchdowns. Tom Brady is hopefully going to get a nice little chunky lead while Drew Brees is out. Not hopefully, because I don't really care who gets it, but you got some good, you got some tough matchups this week also, but Robbie Anderson against Minnesota, hopefully you can get some fucking nasty going on. Yeah. It would be nice.
I'm going to have to... I got to watch Minshew and see what's popping with him, because he's been pretty legit for me. He throws up, solid 20 pluses. Yeah. Except for every now and again, but...
The laid out by Todd Gurley, that's unfortunate because that's a really good matchup that he had.
Yep.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I might lose it at the end here.
We got some tough stuff going on in my other leagues. Let's see, this is the
I think I was projected to lose by like 13 last week though, and I fucking wiped the floor with him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Projections don't mean shit. Yeah. That's why I'll wait, Like Morgan has Russell Wilson, and she also has DK Metcalf, and so the thing about it is that they could go off for like 90 million points, or he could throw 3 picks, and DK Metcalf could have nothing. And there's potential either way of what could happen here.
It's a wild fucking league, bro.
They're playing Philadelphia, who has like a really decent defense. So I'm really interested to see what happens. However, I do love the Seahawks. The Monday night game, Monday 5:15, so I love that.
Monday 5:15.
Love that. Russell Wilson always plays good in prime time. That's why I hate playing teams like this, because I really want the Seahawks to do well. Yeah. But also, fuck Morgan, and I want to win. Like, I really want this money. I told Jordan if I win 3 leagues this year, that's like $1,200-$1,400.
Fuck, bud.
I feel totally comfortable at that point buying plates and also doing other shit with the rest of that money. And like, I won't feel guilty at all.
Not even slightly.
Won't feel even a little bit guilty.
That's fantasy money, sweetheart. It's all free money.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, because we have debt and shit, I'm like, well, I should put, if I got $300, I should put it on one of these credit cards to pay down on. Like that's what I should do. But also, if I have, $1,400, well, I'll buy some plates and then I'll put the rest of it on those credit cards, and everything will be good to go.
It'll all be good.
Yeah, it's all
Ryan
about
Fitz is coming back.
It's all about weighing. So
I just saw that Ryan Fitzpatrick is on. He's holding the top spot in available players.
And that says that he's gonna play this week. They're not gonna play Tua.
Let's see, we're in week 12, right? He's projected.
Fitzpatrick is in line to start Sunday against the Jets after Tua was downgraded to doubtful.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna. I think I might have to do some last minute.
That's a pretty good matchup.
Trade right there.
It's a good. Got him. Scooped
him. Got him.
There you go.
I think I am going to edit my lineup. Kirk is going to have to take a seat on the bench.
Yeah, who are they playing?
Jets.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude.
He's throwing 5 teeters. Anybody who has Devontae Parker, play him because Ryan Fitzpatrick is playing this weekend and they're playing the goddamn Jets. That's 3 teeters. Easy. Easy against the Jets. That's beautiful. The Jets are terrible.
They are and always have been.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
my book.
So, Seahawks play Philadelphia this week. Who do you think wins?
Hawks.
Yeah. Philadelphia's offense is fucking terrible.
They've been letting Russ cook in the kitchen. He's been
Their defense is great,
throwing out some heat.
but their offense is fucking horrible.
Order up.
Yeah, I'm interested to see in my other leagues. Just run everyone through it in the league, like Ryan's league, 6-5. In the Bennick league, I'm 5-6, and in my dynasty league, I'm 7-4.
Oh, dog.
Dynasty league looking pretty good. Yeah, I went 6-0 in the dynasty league before I finally caught a loss, and then I caught like 4 straight. But yeah, 6-0 in that dynasty league. I was smashing Nigel.
Smashing.
Yeah.
Nigel.
I think that is
Line time.
it for today.
Line
yeah.
time, rhyme time.
So I want to remind everybody, we really need to be setting the goddamn timer to tell people to fucking like review and subscribe and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I want to remind everybody, leave us a review and a rating wherever you're listening to the podcast. Subscribe to us. Obviously, if you're not already, if you're new to this, tell your friends to subscribe to us. Send it to them. We're being shadow banned to fuck on everything. So tell your friends. If you see a post of ours, like it, share it, comment on it. It's extremely difficult for us to grow. Make sure that on Twitter you're looking at the latest page and not the home page so that you can see everything that's coming up. Don't allow the tech overlords to tell you and dictate what you can and can't see. Click on the sparkly thing in the corner.
And switch to the latest. Boom.
There you go. Make sure, if you're on Twitter, go to the little sparkly in the top right corner. See your latest tweets. Don't let the tech overlords decide what you can and can't see. They don't fucking know what you want.
You know what's jacked is I feel like I know I've done that before.
It switches back. After a certain amount of time, it switches back. And it will
That's
tell
not
you.
Cool, Jack Dorsey.
It'll tell you when you first open it. It'll say you're now looking at the home screen. But if you're like open it and then look up at something, you'll miss it. You know, if you're not opening it and looking at your phone, you'll miss it. And it's not uncommon for me to be doing something else and open Twitter and finish this and then go back to my phone and do Twitter. You know,
We do this to ourselves. We've done this to ourselves.
don't allow the tech overlords to control what you can see.
No.
Follow us on everything.
Yes.
Instagram at Salt of the Streets, Facebook at Salt of the Streets, YouTube at Salt of the Streets. Everywhere you can find a podcast, Salt of the Streets. I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter. Alpaca_Don on Instagram and Salt of the Streets on Parler. He's at Big Bird Offie on all those things. You can find all this information, saltofthestreets.com. What were you gonna say?
Parler's blown up, by the way.
Parler's getting big.
Yeah, it's getting
Parler's
big now.
getting big. I gotta
They're
start.
trying.
I have not posted anything yet. What is it? A Parley? That's what
A
it's called?
Parley? Yeah, I think so. It's bad.
Haven't posted yet. I'm going to give it a shot. We're going to see what's up.
Yeah.
I'm going to start going for it.
And I'm also looking at that other video platform, too.
Rumble.
Rumble!
I don't like that when you follow someone on Parler, you automatically subscribe to their feed also.
Yep.
I don't like that. So make sure that if you're on Parler, you're paying attention to that. I'm going to kind of start doing Parler, man.
I know.
I really need an Android phone so I can set up widgets again. That's the coolest thing about Android
widgets.
phones is that you can have a widget for like any type of app. And so you can have, a widget for anything on your home screen. I used to have one long ago. I had a Motorola Charm is what I had. And it looked like a BlackBerry.
So charming.
And I had a Twitter widget that was just a tweet box. So I didn't have to open Twitter. I could just type in their tweet and it would just post in there. And that was the coolest fucking part of Android is the widgets. I also learned about a really cool thing called ATAC, which is like a tactical software that you can use maps offline. Yeah. So I'm looking for an old Android phone. Everybody has an old Android phone. Let me know. I want it. I'll buy it from you if you want. I'd love you to send it to me. But I need an old Android phone. Not super old, within the last few years, but I mean like one you don't use anymore. Let me know.
When you going to get that flip phone, bro? The dual screen.
Christmas.
Nice.
Because the thing about it, my phone bill is like the oldest credit thing that I have. And so they're the most lenient with me. So I just stay paying it late. I'm like, I'll do it in 2 weeks. And so I just stay having like a payment arrangement. I could do it. I don't need to but I'm like, what if I don't have to pay the $100 right now? Then I'll just wait, So yeah, I'll totally put it off 2 weeks. So
and then you cook a beautiful, expensive steak dinner for your wife.
I do all kinds of shit. Yeah. And so to upgrade, you have to have your account paid all up. And so I'm gonna wait till I get my Christmas bonus.
Oh, word.
And then I'll pay off my whole phone bill, and then I'll get a new phone. So Christmas, when we record episode 100, I'll have a double phone.
Woo!
It's gonna be hot.
You're gonna have two at the same time. And shit? Yeah.
I don't want just one. I'm double phoning it all out.
Very
nice. even with both phones, it's less expensive than a new iPhone.
Yeah,
So
I know because I have to get one now.
yeah,
Not for me.
Android or a new iPhone.
I'm gonna get an Android phone, but Carolina is going. She's made the decision. She's gonna get that new 12.
She's gonna keep the iPhone.
Yeah, she's gonna keep that one. And then
The thing about it.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I still haven't figured out which one I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
I know I ain't get one of them dual screen phones though. I'm not comfortable with it yet.
Oh,
I can't do
I
it.
still want to go. We're gonna go into the store and like fuck around with some different phones
Yeah.
and see what's up. But yeah, I think
You
double
guys have
phone.
Verizon,
AT&T.
AT&T.
Yeah.
So do they have this like with Verizon now? You got to like call ahead of time and make an
Yes.
appointment and then go wait
Yes.
outside. Because for whatever reason you
And
cannot.
then go wait outside.
You cannot
Yeah.
go to pick up a new cell phone without spending at least an hour at the store.
No, it takes fucking forever.
It seems insane.
Well, now my big concern is because I have an iPhone, getting all my pictures, to make sure I have the shit that I want. So I have to. Can you go on like iCloud.com and just
Yes.
pull it all into like?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, do that stuff.
Pull it onto a
beforehand.
thumb drive and then
Yeah.
move on. Because
Yep,
then
yep.
I'll probably use this phone for Salt of the Streets shit.
Mhm.
I'll use this for posting stuff and doing whatever.
We're gonna have
And
3
then
phones.
It's
And
gonna
actually,
be
we're gonna
rad.
have 4 real soon.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna be mobile, doing all kinds of shit, recording stuff by ourselves, and then coming here, fucking media lab, fucking
Ooh.
mixing it up.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's good.
Ooh.
Yeah, you
I'm
like
getting
that?
on- yeah.
Exactly. We're
Oh,
gonna have
yeah.
individual content that we're bringing. It's gonna be hot.
Carolyn is working on getting herself a new computer, and yeah, she's starting to have some of that fuck you streaming money now. She's been saving up every dollar she's ever made on streaming. She's been saving up to buy herself a nice beastly machine, and so pretty soon she's about ready to cash that out, get a nice.
Really?
And then I'm
Good for her.
gonna fucking tinker and build off that other one.
Nice.
Make us a nice big machine.
Nice.
Be a nice big permanent producer
Fuck
studio
yeah.
over here. We're gonna have some real comfy hangout spots. It's gonna be great.
Slap happy.
Yeah.
Love it.
I like the fact that the GoPro can just be like chilling right there and still pretty much work out a little bit.
Yeah.
Got that high powered USB hub.
I think I
coming
prefer
soon.
this one.
Yeah,
but
for
that's
sure.
Not bad.
I like the fact that it's that close and it still keeps us both in frame. It's pretty
Yes.
legit. So,
Yeah. Is
anyways.
there anything else that you'd like to add to this show here?
I'm just trying to think of something wacky off. No, I don't. Really
We're
have
forgetting anything?
I think we've covered.
Check
all
out
the
Upper
bases.
Left.
Yes.
One Dot just put out some new shit. We talked about that in the beginning. If you're listening to the very end of this, I feel comfortable telling you we're working on a special project with Micaiah.
Oh, dog.
It's going to be sick.
As long as I can wear my hat.
That's it. That's all that we're telling you. No, we already did it. So that's it.
Yep.
All right, line time. I think you might know. You will know, but
I
you just may
certainly
not
will.
remember. Okay. Donnie, I got a German here that wants to die for his country. Oblige him.
Oblige him.